So I say most people believe there is something dramatically wrong in this country. They're not sure what it is.
Got your labor next your soul, interest slave in endless hole. It's so deep you'll never leave, a text on key with no reprieve. Interest banking, future sold, paper money, fuck the gold. Print more money, there's no end, new interest rates thanks to the Fed. Inflation's up, we can't afford to import, source an endless hoard. Funding all this endless war, these the whores I must ignore. Feeling good, yeah that's my price. The system lets me have my vice. Bread and circus feels nice, feeling bad, take this advice. Just take this pill, watch TV, smoke weed and chill. Football parties, man the grill. Watch some porn, drain your vril. Endless pleasure, wait until the lights go out, the lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out, the lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. Never thought that this would happen. Should've prepped instead of fapping. Tires screeching, people scream. Living nightmare, not a dream. There goes all my dopamine, wiping off my jerk off cream. I'm flabby, weak and unprepared to own a gun, I'm really scared. Water filters, batteries, cans of food and MREs. I really should've bought that shit before the social fabric ripped. Atomize, I'm all alone, no internet, can't scroll my phone. The lights go out, the lights are out. The lights go out. Came on, I can't believe, breathe a sigh of great relief. Boy, I love modernity, endless goon sesh never leave. If you're sad, just take this pill. Watch TV, smoke weed and chill. Football parties, man the grill. Watch some porn, join your grill. Endless pleasure, wait until the lights go out, the lights are out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights go out. The lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out. The lights are out. Holy fuck, the lights went out. The lights go out.
And we are back once again with season 2 of Library of Mass Destruction. I am Capitalisimo, your host, and with me, as always, is Christopher Sandbatch. How are you doing today?
I'm starting to get nervous that by the end of this season, I'm going to be down for an endless goon sesh to watch some porn and drain my vril.
You want to retain. You want to retain your vril. Vril retention. Who is it? Edward Bulwer Lytton would always tell you to retain.
What forever. A name!
Yeah, you know what the work was where vril was invented?
No, but it's got to be some. Oh my god! I actually feel like I looked this up not too long ago.
Bulwer Lytton's sci-fi novel Vril: The Coming Race.
Yes.
Yeah. So, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Dude, I like sci-fi novels. The older the older they are, like the further back in time you have to go. I like when it comes to sci-fi novels today. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's not just really hard to imagine fucking random ass dystopian technologies, but like somebody who could like really in 1875 or so, dream, or H.G. Wells could dream up like Morlocks, and like you can dream up Morlocks and Eloi today with no effort whatsoever. All you do is walk down the street. But in the 1890s,
then there weren't quite so many Morlocks around.
Right? Yeah, you didn't have you didn't have to try way harder.
Morlocks on the daily.
Yes.
That was your daily dose of Morlocks was not the average state. So it seems that today, for whatever reason, entropy is down. It's just so sad.
Is our entropy down, or is the whole entropy system down?
Well, it won't stream, so that's a problem.
Wendy painting saw the last 2 episodes and got us yammered.
I don't think that's how entropy works, but you know, it is what it is. So yeah, I guess we're off to the races then. Was there anything in the news that's conspiracy related?
Yeah, I haven't watched the news since Donald. Like the last time I went out of my way.
Not the news,
right?
I mean the discourse.
You know, is there any discourse that's? I haven't picked up on any, but I've been like head down editing for most of the last week, so like I haven't really seen much of anything.
Wonderful. Well, so we are gonna be reading. So this season we're gonna be reading None Dare Call It Conspiracy. We will probably also read the updated sort of expansion pack DLC version, which is called Call It Conspiracy, which was released about a decade after the original book.
Thanks to our sponsors, Passage Press, you can get your own copy for $500.
But it's bound in baby hide.
Yeah. Have you ever seen those? By the way, have you ever seen those books that are bound in human skin?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Yep. I don't own any, sadly.
Yeah,
I would.
I think there's only like 4 that are known to exist, but it was
there are shitloads.
Oh, there really? I thought there were
shitloads of books bound in human skin. Yeah. I mean, look, all you need is some human skin.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Like I know it was really big in France in the 19th century because French people are always like, we know what this book needs: dead human skin.
Yeah, criminal hide. That's what I mean, we should do that. That'll we got to get.
Again, it's just like the Morlock thing, though. Like, first of all, I think it's illegal now, but second of all, it
depends on how you get the skin.
But that's what I was gonna say, is that there is like no shortage of motherfuckers today who would sign up to donate their skin.
Aching for a peeling.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean there would be people who would sell their skin, probably. I mean, I don't know how many like layers you need, right?
I think it's a lot. Well, no, because
probably kind of a lot. Like you can't like get a really bad sunburn, like that's not going to be enough.
No, yeah, that's not going to be enough. Like, and it needs to be enough that like you get past the layers of skin that are easily separated. We're just way off course already. But I was just like I've seen the leather that gets used for bookbinding.
All right. Hold on.
And it's thin leather.
I got it. I figured it out. Out already. All right. This is marketable. You could do this. All right. You figure out some sort of chemical peel that makes just like the top layer come off with no sort of like super permanent, kind of negative impact, right? Like you could just, soak someone's arm in like pure lemon juice or something, and then you can just sort of deglove it, right? Or whatever. Yeah. You probably want to use the back for various reasons. But even if you get enough, like as long as it's in a nice big sheet, right? Then you could just sort of like veneer it, just get like some sort of like flexible resinous coating, and you could just veneer the human skin over, something that's more normal.
No, that's what they do. That's what they do with real leather bound books. It's a very thin piece of leather. That's right.
Yeah, because you got to be able to fold it over, and then they thin it even more on the corners and things like that. So, I feel like you might be able to have something that was technically bound in human skin, even if, what you had was like 2 grams of human skin that was sort of in the coating, right?
Yeah.
It's even easy. It's even easier if you do like blood as a dye or something.
Right. Yeah. Alternate. This is totally a Brian Johnson style startup where we grow human skin on a petri dish for the specific purpose of binding designer books.
Oh my God, it absolutely is. We gotta get actually, this is a terrible idea. I was gonna say we have to get Lou Templar in his fucking basement lab to make some sort of yeast that just produces sheets of human skin.
No, now we've been very productive so far because we've also just written my story for the new Apocalypse Confidential issue, which is
wonderful. Wonderful.
It's perfectly in line with the theme.
You know, you hate to see it, but actually, I'm your muse. How do you?
Yeah, no.
How do you deal with that? That's the most catastrophic fate I've ever heard of. All right, so let's get into it then. With None Dare Call It Conspiracy. So, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Gary Allen with Larry Abraham. Who knows? You know what role each of these guys actually played. Well, I mean, I guess we could do a little background on them, right? Both Gary Allen and Larry Abraham were Birchers. OG Birchers.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that this was from a time whenever, so Gary Allen in particular, I don't know so much about Larry Abraham, but Gary Allen I know went to Stanford. Okay, and so this was not quite the John Birch Society that you think of when you think
certainly
of
certainly not the one of today.
Yes, sir. It's not like you think about the John Birch Society Twitter account. They're not. This is like. The John Birch Society was a significantly larger force in the world than it is today, and arguably is like a sort of direct response to some, because like I said, it was huge at Stanford. I always try to imagine what the Stanford campus must have been like in the 1960s, because on one hand you have Jolly West, and on the other hand you have these John Birch dudes, and what is the interplay? It's got to be interesting.
I feel like well, I bet one would expect that they got on just fine, because I don't think that's
true.
I don't think that Jolly West had a political ethos, right? I think he had I think he had his special interests, which was skirts and mind fucking.
Yeah, I was explaining him to somebody yesterday, and the question was how would he do these trials and this sort of thing? I was like, well, he did a couple of those, but I think Jolly was more of a personal case by case interest at one point in his life. He was very hands on and boutique with his
maybe even a little handsy.
Yeah.
So yeah. I would say, So basically, Gary Allen, Larry Abraham, they were both speechwriters at the John Birch Society. So they would, they'd send these guys out to congressmen and senators and presidential candidates, et cetera, to sort of talk up whatever the relevant topic was.
Weren't they also, one of them at least was affiliated with the George Wallace campaign in 68, I think.
Yeah. Gary Allen was was a George Wallace speechwriter. So, he may have indeed have come up with some of the more choice bits that will get us taken down from YouTube.
Right, dude. George Wallace had some incredible speechwriters, and you know who one of his other speechwriters was?
No,
the guy who wrote. I can't think of his name off the top. He's got kind of a strange name, but he was George Wallace's early speechwriter when he was governor of Alabama. And I've got to look him up, because I've got a buddy that knew him really well and says that he and I are very similar people. But
in the sense that you currently spend a lot of your free time writing speculative speeches for George Wallace if he were running in the present day.
Well, it's like this. He's like this.
This is my alternate history.
Yeah,
George Wallace is alive.
He's
We're
this
bringing
southern
back segregation.
Yeah, he's this southern dude that literally he was like kind of like paid in Lucky Strike cigarettes, and he was like a little bit autistic, and
yeah, you're exactly the same.
Asa Earl Carter was his name. Okay, yeah, and Asa Earl Carter, interestingly enough.
Now that is an old school fucking name.
Yeah. And if you look at him, he looks like exactly like the character you would expect him to. Like, so he's like, like big, heavy, bushy eyebrows. There's not a picture of him where he's not in a baggy suit standing in front of a Confederate flag. But he's the guy that wrote the. Well, it's not true because he, at a later iteration, he came back and tried to. So he's got a couple of interesting things about him. But he at a later time. He came because he got like all the shit in the world got thrown at him for being George Wallace's speechwriter. So he moved to Texas again. Like I said,
everyone moves to Texas. Yeah,
right. He moves to Texas and changes his name to Forrest Carter. And as Forrest Carter, he writes a screenplay for a movie called The Outlaw Josie Wales. Okay.
Oh.
And then he gets the book thrown at him again. And then he grows a mustache and grows his hair out and comes back as this character, as a Native American, and writes another 2-time best-selling children's book called The Education of Littlefoot.
Wow. This man is Italian. That's what's up. The classic, the classic move of being pretending to be a Native American. Woodpit says the legend of Little Feather. Not Littlefoot, who you may recall from the Don Bluth, not a furry, the Don Bluth children's movie Land Before Time.
Oh yeah, there's a furry that goes around. There's a neo-Confederate furry on Twitter that goes by the name of Littlefoot or something.
A neo-Confederate furry, man.
Dude,
the internet.
No, man.
The internet.
But just get back to the text briefly. One of the things that's interesting is this is one of the texts that, as it is about as foundational a text to the paranoid right in the United States as you can get. So, like going all the way back, like I said, to the George Wallace campaign, modern movement conservatism comes out of a very few discrete lineages. One of them is John Birch Society, of course. So that's what we're catching here. But they all like sort of fused, and like the more paranoid aspects of them, they all got behind. Who was that? Barry Goldwater. Yeah, they all really started to swirl together during the Barry Goldwater campaign, and then they
swirled Goldwater. Yes.
Yeah, then they all separated again because not everybody went for George Wallace. Some of them like split into the Reagan camp and this sort of thing. But by the time this is the end of the 60s and early 70s, I think. When does this come out? Like 68, 69?
This book was first printed in 1971.
Yes, in 1971. So like high age of Nixon. This is when movement conservative, because the Republican Party was not necessarily. People will try to retcon Richard Nixon as a conservative. He's not really a conservative. No. Richard Nixon's not somebody who's
he's Hillary Clinton. Like
pretty much. There's like nothing about like none of the things.
But he's willing to drop a hard R in private. That's about
right. Yeah. He's like he's an Orange County Republican. Like really, Richard Nixon is the last like sort of New Deal coalition president before the American political system sort of like what I call the sixth party system collapses and reforms as there's the Watergate class, the Watergate class of incoming political freshmen from after the 74 election, and that really forms the modern Democrat Party. And then this maelstrom of like strange coalitions, paranoid conspiracy theorists, Birchers, Catholics, Trotskyite Jews, like they all sort of like, and then evangelical Christians, like they all kind of fuse into what we refer to as like movement conservatism. That would like be the really
God bless the Trotskyites who got us into Iraq,
right? Yeah, but like this is one of the texts that like sort of becomes the binding glue that holds that coalition together. There's like another one that's called The Creature of Jekyll Island.
Yeah, The Creature of Jekyll Island by Enoch.
These things are all published as like airport tier paperbacks. And like they sell them at gun shows and that sort of thing. But this is one of the really old ones. And like in the whole like canon of like paranoid and totally correct, but maybe their presentation is a little screwy. Like books that like right wingers have like passed around in secret for years. This is right. One of the big ones, you know.
So this book allegedly red-pilled Mr. Alex Jones. It was his entree into the idea that that people who have power tend to run in the same circles and do deals with other people they know.
Yeah,
just like everyone else. The idea that those in power are not a special case.
You see,
that's the conspiracy.
The thing that you see young Alex Jones like coming to this realization. But the other thing that's sort of interesting here is I sometimes reference work that I used to do in Washington D.C. and it was with.
Are you like drumming your fingers on your desk?
I was actually, yeah. Sorry,
I can hear that. It's almost like a binaural heartbeat right now, which is unsettling. So stop.
But the group that I'll because he's definitely not on the internet if he's even still alive. One of the guys I used to work for was Carter Wren. And he was, along with Lee Atwater, one of the dudes he started what was called, I can't remember the name of it, one of the first super PACs, the Congressional Club. Yeah, in 1972. And like, so like whenever I was working in Washington, D.C., I would frequently run into some of these, like, whoever was still alive out of the like sort of the gaggle of names that's going to start to appear in this book eventually, like Nelson Bunker Hunt. I never met Nelson Bunker Hunt, but they're famously they're the brothers in Texas that tried to run a corner on the steel market. But like these were all like the sort of like donors, like sort of like big time Texas like oil money conservatives and that sort of thing that formed the conservative coalition. So we're occasionally going to, again in this book, we're occasionally going to run across people that I've met personally, and I'll point it out when it happens.
Delightful. Okay, well, we're going to discover the cathedral in a little bit. So. None dare call it conspiracy. Right. And this was reprinted by something called Dauphin Publications, or Dauphin. Yeah. Dawn's Dauphin. What poem is that? Dawn's Dauphin.
I don't know.
Yeah. I forget.
I'm going to look them up now.
Yeah. So, but essentially this is like Dauphin Publications is basically a, print on demand.
Yeah,
like it's a pay to play kind of thing. So
their categories include new arrivals, financial, conspiracies, health, and other topics.
Yeah, it's like if you're an old school self-published guy, you go through them, but because you don't understand what KDP is.
Yeah, it's like it's like literally it's a KDP, but their titles include Mind Control in the United States with a special subtitle MK Ultra, The Creature of Jekyll Island.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure everyone can publish that, right? Like that's can't possibly be something that's
I'll bet it now. I bet there's still
copyrighted.
I bet there's still a copyright on it.
Maybe.
And then their conspiracy, that was their non-conspiracy section, by the way. Their conspiracy section includes Satan, prince of this world, and the conspiracy to destroy all existing governments and religions, both by the same guy.
Destroy by Giga Chad. Yeah,
Yes.
Destroy everything that exists or annihilate everything that exists. All right. I think I'm gonna go ahead and read the shilling that they included in the front of the book.
Yeah.
You may have received this book through the mail. It is a gift from a concerned American who has read the book. The donor believes that the survival of our country hinges on the public becoming aware of the material contained herein. All he asks is that you read the book. Gary Allen is a California-based freelance journalist. After majoring in history at Stanford University and doing graduate work at California State College at Long Beach, he became aware through independent research that his college courses had been highly slanted. Many of the most important facts had been left out. This book is the result of his personal postgraduate studies in finding out who's who in American politics.
Beautiful.
Wow, beautiful. There is, I can't. What a far way to fall here. I'm falling into the whole credentialist trap here. But what a fall from Stanford to California State College at Long Beach. Like,
they have
a graduate program.
They might. It's a school that probably doesn't even exist anymore. But I was going to point out also, Stanford at the time was not the powerhouse university it is today. Like, that's actually that is almost entirely a it was always a good school. It was
Back
always
in the day, they would say Stanford is the Chico State of today.
Right.
And everyone would say, what does that mean?
I mean,
they would say, don't worry about it. It'll make sense in the 2020s.
But like in 1972, I'd be willing to bet that actually UC Berkeley was the more prestigious school, and that's probably not the case today. It was actually the infusion of all of the tech / MK Ultra money that built Stanford into the powerhouse university it is today. Well, so that's all just happening at this moment, And Gary catches it in action. Gary catches it as it's happening. He
catches the knife falling. There is also just so you know, in this first paragraph, or you may have received this book through the mail. There's like one of the ways this book was distributed was that, I don't know if it's actually like in the text or if it was just like on the back page or something. But basically, it's like you should buy more copies of this and then mail it to random people.
Yeah.
Like, just mail it. Like, just pick 10 people and just mail it to them, and like just throw a stamp on this son of a bitch and write an address on it. So it was like this weird like asynchronous virality. Like,
exactly.
It was attempting to activate or like create cells of people who had read the book.
And it was very
over 5 million copies sold.
It was very successful, and I even tell you because like I said, I've seen these old editions of these. I've seen these old editions of these things, and the way it works is there'll be a perforated order, like it'll be a perforated page in the back, and there'll be like a checklist of all of these similar titles. And you could just, they'll cost like $3 each, and just you could check off it'll check off three titles.
1971, that shit was like 85 cents, bro.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, it'll be even cheaper than that. And like you can just check off as many of the titles as you want, and then write a number and saying as many of them, however many of them you want. And then they would send, like, you'd send that off, and they would send you back another packet where you would fill in the addresses of where you want the books to go.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's see here. Introduction from United States Congressman John G. Schmitz. The story you are about to read is true. The names have not been changed to protect the guilty. This book may have the effect of changing your life. After reading this book, you will never look at national and world events in the same way again. Oh, I guarantee that anyone listening to us right now will have their worldview completely unchanged. None Dare Call It Conspiracy will be a very controversial book. At first, it will receive little publicity, and those whose plans are exposed in it will try to kill it by the silent treatment. For reasons that become obvious as you read this book, it will not be reviewed in all the proper places or be available on your local book stand. However, there is nothing these people can do to stop a grassroots book distributing system. Eventually, it will be necessary for the people and organizations named in this book to try and blunt its effect by attacking it or the author. They have a tremendous vested interest in keeping you from discovering what they are doing. And they have the big guns of the mass media at their disposal to fire the barrages at None Dare Call It Conspiracy. By sheer volume, the experts have been a problem for 50 years at least. We've been calling out the phrase experts. Will try to ridicule you out of investigating for yourself as to whether or not the information in this book is true. They will ignore the fact that the author admits that some of his ideas are about to conjecture because the people who know the truth are not about to confess. They will find a typographical error, like the one in the previous sentence,
Yes.
or argue some point that is open to debate. If necessary, they will lie in order to protect themselves by smearing this book. Psychologically, many people would prefer to believe those who poo-poo the information herein because we all like to ignore bad news. We do so at our own peril. Having been a college instructor, a state senator, and now a congressman, I have had experience with real professionals at putting up smokescreens to cover up their own actions by trying to destroy the accuser. I hope that you will read this book carefully, draw your own conclusions, and not accept the opinions of those who, of necessity, must attempt to discredit the book. Your future may depend on it. October 25th, 1971, John G. Schmitz.
Now, if you're like, again, so this is the high age of Reagan. John G. Schmitz he's the member from what was at the time California's 35th congressional district, which is Orange County. So that's like, he's not quite a
red state, California.
Yeah, like this is like old classic. This is like the Nixon machine is kind of what it is. And he was certainly a member. He was a speechwriter for then independent party. He was not a member of the Nixon coalition. He was a speechwriter for George Wallace in 1968 and a member of the John Birch Society, of course. Here we go. Schmitz believed in Allen's conspiracy and also would publicly peddle the idea of Richard Nixon being an agent of the Rockefeller family who had financed the Bolshevik Revolution.
Perfect.
Beautiful.
Perfect. Can you honestly say that you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, you got me. His wife was known as the West Coast Phyllis Schlafly. All these people.
The discount version because she wasn't a blessed Midwesterner.
Yeah. Oh, and then of course, here we go. Obituary. His obituary was printed in the Journal of Historical Review, publication of the Institute for Historical Review. One of my personal mentors was the librarian and archivist at the Institute for Historical Review, which was, I've referred to this character before, a Willis Carto operation.
All right. Chapter 1. Don't confuse me with facts. I like it. Most of us have had the experience, either as parents or youngsters, of trying to discover the hidden picture within another picture in a children's magazine. Highlights mentioned. Usually you are shown a landscape with trees, bushes, flowers, and other bits of nature. The caption reads something like this. Concealed somewhere in this picture is a donkey pulling a cart with a boy in it. Can you find them? Try as you might, usually you could not find the hidden picture until you turned to a page farther back in the magazine, which would reveal how cleverly the artist had hidden it from us. If we study the landscape, we realize that the whole picture was painted in such a way as to conceal the real picture within. And once we see the real picture, It stands out like the proverbial painful digit. I don't actually know that proverb.
It's probably not one. It's like, I don't know if you're like aware, if you've like noticed, we've been gaslit pretty hard at every step of the way so far. You know, like it's like there has not been. It's just almost like the way this book opens. It's like whenever it's like you knock on the door, there's a knock on your door, and the Mormons are here to tell you about Jesus. You know, and they're very insistent that you listen to them. Like you haven't like this whole thing. It's like happens in like the flash of all of a sudden you're serving Jello salad and like instant coffee to these two men in black suits who are here to tell you the
Jello
world
salad and instant coffee. Am I a silent generation guy?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's who this is all being sold
yeah, fair
to.
enough. Incidentally, it is probably the saying "a burnt finger teaches best." It's probably what that is. Proverbial painful digit. Anyway, we believe the picture painters of the mass media are artfully creating landscapes for us, which deliberately hide the real picture. In this book, we will show you how to discover the hidden picture in the landscapes presented to us daily through newspapers, radio, and television. Media literacy. Once you can see through the camouflage, you will see the donkey, the cart, and the boy who have been there all along. This is a very quaint way of saying that, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hokey. The audience they're aiming at is the middle American audience. You know, like middle American.
What if Walter Cronkite is lying to you and doesn't actually know everything? He's just reading words.
Yeah.
You know, actually, the silent generation and greatest generation people really did think that like respected news anchors. Is that crazy? Like, I don't know like a single millennial or whoever who respects news anchors.
Or certainly doesn't think of them as
authorities,
as even an expert in any particular field at all. Like we're like all totally aware this is just a guy reading shit, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's
but they didn't know that at the time, man. Like we're talking about people that like, for a lot of these people, air conditioning, refrigerators, and the magic TV box have all been like conjured into existence in their own lifetime. And they like almost like, it's like, you know, the technology that they have, a lot of background chatter. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm in an Airbnb and there's a bunch of future doctors and lawyers hooting and hollering next door. I'm in Memphis. I'm in Memphis, by the way.
Owen Zaleski. Jon Stewart is literally right there. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I will say that, but he is not a news anchor. He is a comedian. Like, obviously, he's a propagandist, but he like people know that he is an entertainer, and so people do still respect entertainers. Now, obviously, they give people like him or Stephen Colbert or I don't know who's the well, maybe not Stephen Colbert anymore. Actually, I think only millennials remember when Stephen Colbert was funny. The Tonight Show is where comedy goes to die. But the English one, the really annoying one,
John Oliver.
That's right. Notice how I didn't say Trevor Noah because no one gave a shit about that guy.
He was South African anyway.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, but they, I feel like people will trust comedians more than they trust news anchors, basically.
Well, I mean,
it happens on the right wing too. Like, let's be real.
The right wing, if anything, is again, it's because of people. We're a little bit maybe too credulous. It's like, yeah, we'll go listen to anybody who says the right words. If they say the establishment, the mainstream media, or whatever, and like your name could be King Salmon Fish, and you could be like ranting about the Ray Pete thing again. Like, Ray
said-
Pete has
you said that-
so
yeah,
much
you
bad
said-
advice.
You don't say Sibboleth, therefore you aren't a Ephraimite, and I will not kill you. Right?
Right,
That's-
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, like this kind of programming totally still exists, but like millennials, like Oswald Art over here says we give millennials too much credit. First of all, we're both millennials, so what the hell, you know? And second of all, it is true that like millennials did just kind of transfer that like credulity down from the mainstream media to the cable media, and like we're like, well, it's not, you know, it's not. There was a time when Jon Stewart was like literally respected as somebody who might be able to offer an in-depth story. It's hard to remember that now, but it was true for a while.
The Great War on Terror, 2003. Oh God. Anyway, millions of Americans are concerned and frustrated over mishappenings in our nation. The more things change, huh? They feel that something is wrong, dramatically wrong, but because of the picture painters, they can't quite put their finger on it. Maybe you are one of those persons. Something is bugging you, but you aren't sure what. This is a cold read, by the way. Like this sales technique is a cold read.
Yeah, exactly.
We keep electing new presidents who seemingly promise faithfully to halt the worldwide communist advance, put the blocks to extravagant government spending, douse the tea of inflation, put the economy on an even keel, reverse the trend, which is turning the country into a moral sewer, and toss the criminals into the hoosgow where they belong. I love hoosgow. Love hoosgow. We're real hoosgow posting. Yet despite high hopes and glittering campaign promises, these problems continue to worsen no matter who is in office. Each new administration, whether it be Republican or Democrat, continues the same basic policies of the previous administration, which it had so thoroughly denounced during the election campaign. It is considered poor form to mention this, but it is true nonetheless. Is there a plausible reason to explain why this happens? We are not supposed to think so. We are supposed to think it is all accidental and coincidental, and that therefore there is nothing we can do about it.
So, like, this is the myth that gets repackaged over and over again as the establishment, the cathedral, so on and so forth. This is it being born in real time, and I will probably continually refer to as we go through this. There's a really schizo element here that I'm sure is going to be introduced shortly, which is this at the same time. You see this line right here where they say, whether it be Republican or Democrat. I referred to Nixon as the New Deal coalition, the last New Deal coalition president. Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is what would be at the time referred to as the bipartisan consensus, where both parties were actually really relatively united around this concept of what today we would refer to as growth liberalism. But this is the growing administrative state that does things like build the interstate system, the Great Society, all the welfare programs that we are aware of today. This is like, whenever they refer to whether it be Democrat or Republican, they're doing two things. They're doing two things here. First of all, they're appealing to the myth of a unified nation that is roughly as old as the New Deal coalition that they're talking about, but they're also decrying the ideological uniformity within that New Deal coalition, because what's actually happening here is a new movement, like a brand new political movement that has not seen much political representation in that coalition is being birthed. So like as we move forward here, you're probably going to start to see Franklin Delano Roosevelt referred to like in a very schizophrenic way as both a unifying force and both as the source of like this sort of conspiratorial like kind of thinking. Like that's the direction that I expect this to move here. And y'all have to because I am like,
are you reading ahead?
No.
Well, FDR once said, in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. He was in a good position to know. We believe that many of the major world events that are shaping our destinies occur because somebody or some buddies have planned them that way. If we were merely dealing with the law of averages, Half of the events affecting our nation's well-being should be good for America. If we were dealing with mere incompetence, our leaders should occasionally make a mistake in our favor. We shall attempt to prove that we are not really dealing with coincidence or stupidity, but with planning and brilliance. This small book deals with that planning and brilliance and how it has shaped the foreign domestic policies of the last 6 administrations. We hope it will explain matters which have up to now seemed inexplicable, that it will bring into sharp focus images which have been obscured by the landscape painters of the mass media.
Oh, beautiful. I told you I used to work for these people. Like I have been involved in flyer campaigns in as late as the year 2020 that use the same basic format.
Wow.
Yeah.
Flyers. Imagine. I love physical media. I think that campaign flyers and like little knickknacks like that. I should be scrapbooking them.
Oh, dude, I have so much of it. Like I have I have old John Birch books. I have there was a magazine called Southern Partisan that these same people would like cook up within the same decade. I have a bunch of old copies of it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Those who believe that major world events result from planning are laughed at for believing in the conspiracy theory of history. Of course, no one in this modern day and age really believes in the conspiracy theory of history, except those who have taken the time to study the subject. When you think about it, there are really only 2 theories of history. Either things happen by accident, neither planned nor caused by anybody, or they happen because they are planned. Somebody causes them to happen. In reality, it is the accidental theory of history preached in the unhallowed halls of Ivy, which should be ridiculed. Otherwise, why does every recent administration make the same mistakes as the previous ones? Why do they repeat the errors of the past, which produce inflation, depression, and war? Why does our State Department stumble from one communist-aiding blunder to another? If you believe it is all an accident or the result of mysterious and unexplainable tides of history, you will be regarded as an intellectual who understands that we live in a complex world. If you believe that something like 32,496 consecutive coincidences over the past 40 years stretches the law of averages a bit, you are a kook. Yeah, I mean...
The early Curtis Yarvin essay is wild.
Yeah, man, unqualified reservations, back in the day was wild. Why is it that virtually all reputable scholars and mass media columnists and commentators reject the cause and effect of or conspiratorial theory of history? Primarily, most scholars follow the crowd in the academic world just as most women follow fashions. Nice. To buck the tide means social and professional ostracism. The same is true of the mass media. While professors and pontificators profess to be tolerant and broad-minded, in practice it's strictly a one-way street, with all traffic flowing left.
God, I love that's a great line. I love the anaphora there is incredible. Like they will use like really old rhetorical tricks while professors and pontificators profess. You get 3 P's right there in a row.
Yep.
Very sonorant.
Yeah. A Maoist can be tolerated by liberals of ivory tower land or by the establishment capitally, the establishment's media pundits, but to be a conservative. Okay. You know where the word pundit comes from? Sanskrit. That's why you can't trust it. So, but to be a conservative and a conservative who propounds a conspiratorial view, it is absolutely verboten.
And the German word appears. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Better you should be a drunk at a national WCTU convention. Secondly, these people have over the years acquired a strong vested emotional interest in their own errors. Their intellects and egos are totally committed to the accidental theory. Most people are highly reluctant to admit that they have been conned or have shown poor judgment. To inspect the evidence of the existence of a conspiracy guiding our political destiny from behind the scenes would force many of these people to repudiate a lifetime of accumulated opinions. It takes a person with strong character, indeed, to face the facts and admit that he has been wrong, even if it was because he was uninformed. Actually, so right here, this series of arguments here, it is you're priming a person. So this is a rhetorical trick that's used in interrogations as well.
I was
right?
I was going to point out that this guy went to Stanford, and
Yeah, I know.
like he's maybe picked up a little DDD along the way.
Yeah, well, so when you say something like when you offer something like this, actually saying that you were wrong, abandoning your previously held beliefs is not an act of cowardice. It's an act of
it's an act of courage. It takes
an
a
act of
strong
courage.
man to admit
It's a
when
strong
he was
man.
wrong.
It's strength to abandon previously held principles.
And remember, their audience is mostly men. Their audience is mostly men who do not have testosterone problems. And their audience is largely men who didn't have testosterone problems, who, interestingly enough, over the course of the previous two generations, like the main audience for these texts are people who had fought in World War II, Korea, and or Vietnam. And so they have been exposed to sort of there's a certain set of core values that these people have that the military in particular was very important in instilling in these people. So they have a collection of trigger buttons that they can go touch. They can start anytime they need to do any convincing, they can start swirling around this set of shared values that is instilled in them by the military, which is going to include following strong leaders,
Yep. Such was the case with the author of this book. See, again, it's giving permission, right? I'm like you, right? It was only because he set out to prove the conservative anti-communists wrong that he happened to end up writing this book. His initial reaction to the conservative point of view was one of suspicion and hostility. And it was only after many months of intensive research that he had to admit that he had been conned.
The left left me.
So this he set out to prove that the conservative anti-communists were wrong. This guy had been working, like, this guy was a George Wallace speechwriter. He wasn't wrong. Like, he didn't change, right? So that's completely fabricated, right?
Yeah, he's just making shit up.
He's a virtue. He's just like, well, I'm like you. This is an open letter to open-minded progressives.
No, literally that. I would also point out that here's a historical fascination. On the last page, for instance, he referred to Maoists. This is something that gets kind of lost because we get so lost in the discourse, Stalinism and Soviets and this sort of thing. One of the things that we forget is that the primary, especially the Birchers, and this is the Birchers weren't wrong here, but the primary vector of communist influence in the United States actually came through Mao's Little Red Book. Okay, so it's actually Maoism. Chinese communism is the vector of communism. It's going to be Maoism and Gramsciism.
Really,
on one side, because
you don't think Leninism is really the
no. I mean, the United States was even the new left, even the early new left, were relatively against the idea of pure style of like Orthodox Stalinism, Orthodox Leninism. And if you remember correctly, this is he is making this case. There's a possibility, there's a possibility he had some Trotskyite tendencies whenever he was in college. Sure. And that's what he's sort of referring to. But the other thing is that this book coincides roughly with the publication of the first translation of Gramsci out of Italian into English. So Gramsciism is also on the rise here. So this is as these sort of theories of hegemony and that sort of thing are starting to appear on college campuses.
Politicians and intellectuals are attracted to the concept that events are propelled by some mysterious tide of history or happen by accident. By this reasoning, they hope to escape the blame when things go wrong. Most intellectuals, pseudo and otherwise, deal with the conspiratorial theory of history simply by ignoring it. They never attempt to refute the evidence. It can't be refuted. If and when the silent treatment doesn't work, these objective scholars and mass media opinion molders resort to personal attacks, ridicule, and satire. The personal attacks tend to divert attention from facts which an author or speaker is trying to expose. The idea is to force the person exposing the conspiracy to stop the exposure and spend all the time and effort defending himself. And one thing that we could note is that essentially the case that's being made here that, the case that's being made here that the media and culture does not attempt to even-handedly expose the truth. That is completely orthodox now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, there's
and I'm not saying that as someone with my viewpoint. I think that virtually everyone in American society, unless you are entirely bought in, unless you're literally Terry Gross, the host of Fresh Air, you think that. Right?
Unless you're a boomer that didn't get mailed a copy of None Dare Call It Conspiracy in the 1970s, or I mean, there is no left. I mean, there's the left wing conspiracy, left wing millennials don't believe. This is absolutely true. I've sounded very critical of this text thus far because I am poking little holes in it, but. I mean, it is. I mean,
I'm poking holes in the sales pitch here.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but it's saying things that are fundamentally true that it's very difficult for us to contextualize that people did not believe at the time. But I mean, if you saw on Twitter today, John Slaughter and I were arguing with this fucking boomer. You do still occasionally. My parents believe everything that comes on CBS News. They're just like that. Oh, and just to grab the comments here for a second real quick. Randall Sugar says, one observation, George Wallace and JBS was also the primordial soup that created G. Edward Griffin of the Creature of Jekyll Island fame. Same publisher as this book came from. And we talked about that at the beginning. And then Gabe says, the 20s and 30s were riddled with communists, though, ? The son of the headmaster of the University of Chicago was a communist informant. Yeah, that is true. World War II is kind of a caesura, though, where especially by the McCarthyists and this, they generally tended to weed the orthodox, the direct Soviet sympathizers out to one extent or another. This is the communists you're dealing with here now are going to be, usually as a result of the Vietnam War, they're going to be Maoist sympathizers. There's just a different wave of communists.
Yep. Oh. Owen Zaleski, Chicago mentioned, shout out the new Pope.
The Bears.
Yeah, well, I guess we didn't mention that. Yes. Welcome, Pope Leo the 14th. I like that he's doing Latin Mass. That's cool. So.
I like everything about him, and that pisses people off, so I'm not going to say anything.
I mean, I really love that. I really love that we have Central Time Poppy now.
Yeah, exactly. Yes,
Central Time Poppy.
My other favorite thing is he's got a brother in Orlando who is literally. God, he said something.
Q Boomer. He's got a Q Boomer brother.
Yes,
in Florida.
Yeah,
snowbirds.
It cracks me up because he said something. He was like, when we were kids raising Cain, and I was like in all the annals of papal history, we have a pope who has been described by his brother as raising Cain.
Yes,
this is the best possible timeline.
We have he's the kind of guy who might say who's go.
Yes.
Oh my God. All right. Anyway. However, the most effective weapons used against the conspiratorial theory of history are ridicule and satire. These extremely potent weapons can be cleverly used to avoid any honest attempt at refuting the facts. After all, nobody likes to be made fun of. Rather than be ridiculed, most people will keep quiet, and this subject certainly does lend itself to ridicule and satire. One technique which can be used is to expand the conspiracy to the extent it becomes absurd. For instance, our man from the halls of Poison Ivy might say in a scoffing, arrogant tone, I suppose you believe every liberal professor gets a telegram each morning from a conspiracy headquarters containing his orders for the day's brainwashing of his students. Some conspiratorialists do indeed overdraw the picture by expanding the conspiracy from the small clique which it is to include every local knee-jerk liberal activist and government bureaucrat. or because of racial or religious bigotry, they will take small fragments of legitimate evidence and expand them into a conclusion that will support their particular prejudice, i.e., the conspiracy is totally Jewish, or Catholic, or Masonic. These people do not help to expose the conspiracy, but sadly play into the hands of those who want the public to believe that all conspiratorialists are screwballs.
Now, I don't know about this, Gary. You're starting to lose me. I'm starting to believe Gary's got a Zionist problem. You know, he might be on the payroll here.
Who was the? Can we get an early life check on this Lawrence Abraham man?
Yeah.
Let's see. The CIA and State Department at this time called our leftists the non-communist left, which just means not Russian aligned, and aggressively supported them wherever they could be found.
That's true.
Yeah.
That is true. In fact, actually, it's one of the characters that I was. A character we call my mentor, that I'm not going to give his name, was the head of the CIA's East Berlin desk in the early 1980s. And the way he was pipelined into the CIA was he was a German history student. He participated in Theodor Adorno and Max Horkheimer's German semester at UCLA in, I think, 1967. And that was a semester that was conducted by members of the Frankfurt School that were engaged. They were engaged specifically in the project of infiltrating the left and propping up non-Russian aligned leftist narratives. So that's exactly right what Johnson just said there.
Intellectuals are fond of mouthing cliches like the conspiracy theory is often tempting. However, it is overly simplistic. To ascribe absolutely everything that happens to the machinations of a small group of power-hungry conspirators is overly simplistic. But in our opinion, nothing is more simplistic than doggedly holding on to the accidental view of major world events. Like, yeah, I mean, again, like the argument that is being made here is completely orthodox now. The idea that people in power will use their power to influence rewards for themselves, right? So, and not necessarily, those rewards are not necessarily solely or even maybe primarily financial. It will reward their ideological goals, which is something that motivates people more than just money in a lot of cases. So, in most cases, liberals simply accuse all those who discuss the conspiracy of being paranoid. You right-wingers, they say, rustling every bush, kicking over every rock, looking for imaginary boogeymen. Then comes the coup de grace, labeling the conspiratorial theory as the devil theory of history. The liberals love that one, even though it is an empty phrase. It sounds so sophisticated. This is a reference to the idea that, oh, well, you know, you just can't believe that things occur. You need a devil to blame. So, yeah. With the leaders of the academic and communications world assuming this sneering attitude towards the conspiratorial or cause and effect theory of history, it is not surprising that millions of innocent and well-meaning people, in a natural desire to not appear naive, assume the attitudes and repeat the cliches of the opinion makers. These persons, in their attempt to appear sophisticated, assume their mentor's air of smug superiority, even though they themselves have not spent 5 minutes in study on the subject of international conspiracy. Have you spent 5 minutes in study? Everyone listening has spent 1 hour and 5 minutes in the study of international conspiracy. Or if you listen to our previous season, 84 hours, although that was a domestic conspiracy.
You're a journeyman.
You're a journeyman. You're a journeyman.
You all are soldiers of liberty in the great war for the future of the American nation, you know.
Right. Start your own cells of the Library of Mass Destruction. Mail this video to your friends. or people out of the phone book. Do they still have those phone books?
Be sure to sneed those super chats.
Be sure to sneed those super chats. Tell your friends to sneed their super chats too, or the communists will win. Let's see. The accidentalists would have us believe that ascribing any of our problems to planning is simplistic, and all of our problems are caused by poverty, ignorance, and disease, hereinafter abbreviated as PID. They ignore the fact that organized conspirators use PID, real and imagined, as an excuse to build a jail for us all. Most of the world has been in PID since time immemorial, and it takes incredibly superficial thinking to ascribe the ricocheting of the United States government from one disaster to another over the past 30 years to PID. Accidentalists ignore the fact that some of the more advanced nations in the world have been captured by communists. Czechoslovakia was one of the world's most modern industrial nations, and Cuba had the second highest per capita income of any nation in Central and South America. Ah, Czechoslovakia. I remember it well.
There are so many things going on. I mean, this is like we're doing. He's referring to like samizdat literature and this sort of thing.
Yes.
But there's a couple of things that are worth noting here. First of all, at the sales pitch is currently at the stage where you've established a rapport, and so like we've introduced these terms, and now we're referring to accidentalists, like the reader is intimately familiar with them. Maybe
I know what these accidentalists are.
Maybe even be an idea that they came up with on their own, and then also poverty, ignorance, and disease, which is not DDD but PID. Has been introduced
it's FUD. It's fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Right, exactly. So like now we're at the stage of intimacy and relationship formation, parasocial intimacy and relationship formation, where we start building our own internal jargon.
Right. And it is pointing out a real strategy. Obviously, we are not discounting the fact that many people we know that there's a lot of money to be made pointing out a problem and saying that you can be paid to fix it, right? Poverty, ignorance, and disease, right? We've spent a whole lot of filthy lucre trying to eradicate those things, but it's the jargonism, it's coining phrases in the previous passages, and it's priming the listener to sort of take everything on board here. So it is not true, however, to state that there are no members of the intellectual elite who subscribe to the conspiratorial theory of history. For example, there is Professor Carol Quigley of the Foreign Service School at Georgetown University.
Quigley mentioned.
Yeah, no kidding. Professor Quigley can hardly be accused of being a right-wing extremist. Those three words have been made inseparable by the mass media. Dr. Quigley has all the liberal credentials, having taught at the liberal establishment's academic meccas of Princeton and Harvard. In his 1,350-page, 5-pound tome, Tragedy and Hope, Dr. Quigley reveals the existence of the conspiratorial network, which will be discussed in this book. The professor is not merely formulating a theory, but revealing this network's existence from firsthand experience. He also makes it clear that it is only the network's secrecy and not their goals to which he objects. Professor Quigley discloses, I know of the operations of this network because I have studied it for 20 years and was permitted for 2 years in the early 1960s to examine its papers and secret records. I have no aversion to it or to most of its aims, and have for much of my life been close to it and to many of its instruments. I have objected both in the past and recently to a few of its policies, but in general, my chief difference of opinion is that it wishes to remain unknown, and I believe its role in history is significant enough to be known. Emphasis added. We agree its role in history does deserve to be known. That is why we have written this book. However, we most emphatically disagree with the network's aim, which the professor describes as nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. In other words, this power-mad clique wants to control and rule the world. Even more frightening, they want total control over all individual actions. As Professor Quigley observes, the individual's, freedom of and choice will be controlled within very narrow alternatives by the fact that he will be numbered from birth and followed as a number through his educational training, his required military or other public service, his tax contributions, his health and medical requirements, and his final retirement and death benefits. It wants control over all natural resources, business, banking, and transportation by controlling the governments of the world. In order to accomplish these aims, the conspirators have no qualms about fomenting wars, depressions, and hatred. They want a monopoly which would eliminate all competitors and destroy the free enterprise system. And Professor Quigley of Harvard, Princeton, and Georgetown approves.
He approves it. Dr. Quigley. You know, he's just like, this is like the Carol, like they're referred to Carol Quigley as like the Glenn Greenwald type figure, you know?
Right. Right. You can almost hear the like, and the professor approves. You can almost hear it in like Tucker Carlson's voice.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Like the delivery there.
I mean, Tucker Carlson's dad is one of. I mean,
I know.
This is these are his people. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Professor Quigley is not the only academic who is aware of the existence of a clique of self-perpetuating conspirators, whom we shall call insiders. Other honest scholars finding these same individuals at the scenes of disastrous political fires over and over again have concluded that there is obviously an organization of pyromaniacs at work in the world. But these intellectually honest scholars realize that if they challenged the insiders head-on, their careers would be destroyed. The author knows these men exist because he has been in contact with some of them. There are also religious leaders who are aware of the existence of this conspiracy. In a UPI story dated December 27th, 1965, Father Pedro Arrupe, head of the Jesuit order of the Roman Catholic Church, made the following charges during his remarks to the Ecumenical Council. It's a little Jesuit order. I don't know. I probably have referred to it as the Society of Jesus. I don't know. Like
Societas Jesu.
Yeah.
It's me, by the way.
Yeah.
I was like also point out that, like, you know, if you're establishing sort of like network archetypes, there's totally an argument where Sandbatch falls in the Carol Quigley, like Father Pedro Arrupe, like sort of lineage, where I'm willing to point these things out. But like famously, my second favorite president is FDR, and I have like serious Jesuit tendencies. So there's everything is being established here. The whole plot narrative is being established here.
This godless society operates in an extremely efficient manner, at least in its higher levels of leadership. It makes use of every possible means at its disposal, be they scientific, technical, social, or economic. It follows a perfectly mapped out strategy. It holds almost complete sway in international organizations, in financial circles, in the field of mass communications, press, cinema, radio, and television. There are a number of problems to be overcome in convincing a person of the possible existence of a conspiratorial clique of insiders who, from the very highest levels, manipulate government policy. In this case, truth is really stranger than fiction. We are dealing with history's greatest whodunit, a mystery thriller which puts early Stanley Gardner to shame. If you love a mystery, you'll be fascinated with the study of the operations of the insiders. If you do study the network of which Professor Quigley speaks, you will find that what had first seemed incredible not only exists, but heavily influences our lives. It must be remembered that the first job of any conspiracy, whether it be in politics, crime, or within a business office, is to convince everyone else that no conspiracy exists. The conspirators' success will be determined largely by their ability to do this. That the elite of the academic world and mass communications media always poo-poo the existence of the insiders merely serves to camouflage their operations. These artists hide the boy, the cart, and the donkey. Oh, it's a donkey. Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know. I don't know how much to add to that, other than, you know, it is merely acknowledged that much of this is the case. You know. Again, I struggle to think of. I mean, I don't know. I guess there are still people who like think that Bill Burr is like right wing because of his physiognomy or something.
I don't even know who Bill Burr is. He gets mentioned.
Blessing,
he gets mentioned sometimes.
blessing.
Yeah, I don't consume media because I read None Dare Call It Conspiracy years ago.
You never can. I don't consume media. I participate in discourse.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, actually, we're at the point where not only is the discourse controlled by, you know, the actions of electronic demons, just controlling, you know, how often and who sees what, but, you know, I mean, okay. Shout out to Jacob Orowski of Keyed Energy.
I'm drinking one right now, by the way.
Oh, are you? Amazing. Yeah. So he is a poster. He's a Twitter guy. He paid a random low follower girl to say the N-word. Okay. And this was before Shiloh Hendricks, like 2 months before, basically. Paid this girl to say the N-word. Immediately, she got like 15,000 followers on Twitter. And then he just like showed everyone receipts that he was just like, hey, I'll make sure you get like 15,000 followers on Twitter. Like, just say drink Keyed Energy. So he did it just to psyop an energy drink ad.
Yeah, I mean, this is the, you know, I don't want to give away the group chat sources or anything like that, but this is like more or less the basic pattern for advertising to millennials and Zoomers is like you're actually sort of playing on the fact that a considerable amount of this material has been internalized, and then you're inverting it. So this is like one of the things about texts like this that are a little bit dangerous because they're kind of out of date and have kind of maybe fallen a little bit into the MK Ultra playbook.
Well, I mean, just in the sense that that particular set of skills can be adapted to any. Yeah. As we read last time on the Jolly on West special for DDD, it's a state. So it doesn't matter what other game states have existed before or may exist after. If you get into the DDD territory, you can be manipulated, right?
Four so clubs, by the way.
That's why literally black pilling is DDDing.
Yes, exactly. But by the way, four club says, "Who here has never paid a girl to say the N-word?" And
if they really love you, they do it for free.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh my god. And Hazael, a hot redhead shouted the N-word without me giving her money. This is why they are replacing the redheads with black women in media. That's why, because redheads will do that. So, let's see here. Probably at some time you have been involved with or had personal knowledge of some event which was reported in the news. Perhaps it concerned an athletic event, an election, a committee, or your business. Did the report contain the real story, the story behind the story? Probably not, and for a variety of reasons. The reporter had time and space problems, and there is a good chance that persons involved deliberately did not reveal all the facts. Possibly the reporter's own prejudices governed what facts went into the story and which were deleted. Our point is that most people know from personal experience that a news story often is not the whole story, but many of us assume that our own case is unique when really it is typical. What is true about the reporting of local events is equally as true about the reporting of national and international events. Yeah, framing, we know, right? We know about framing. But I completely believe that the people who received this in 1971 did not fully understand that.
No, I mean they didn't. Like this is, it's fascinating, but I mean you have to like think, especially if you're a millennial, you can probably remember your grandparents and like they'll get mentioned in the news one time and they'll be like, well, that reporter took my words out of context entirely, and then they go write a letter to the editor complaining about it, be like, there are some mistakes you made in this story, and you don't realize it's what they're doing every time,
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Yep. Psychological problem. I mean, and it's honestly, it's just that at present, it is easier for everyone to see things because we exist in this sort of area between narratives, right? We're just fortunate enough that that mass media still exists, right? While social media also exists. And both of these have their own sets of frames and distortions, but they are conflicting distortions. And so because these distortions tend to be in conflict, it allows you to kind of see the shape that they're moving around. So yeah, I mean, obviously we now have we can just think back to 5 years ago and what all of that was like, right? And what we have since found to be the actual truth, which many people knew all along, or at least believed that they knew all along what the truth was, and it mostly broke in our direction.
Right. And just to go back and grab another like sort of footnote for everybody, the Societas Jesus priest that was referred to a little while ago, Father Pedro Arrupe, was, according here, in a speech to European educators, now I just skip that part, without a doubt, Christian love of neighbor, so on and so forth. In the late 1960s into the 1980s, some theologians in Latin America became increasingly involved in the political sphere, adopting Marxist rhetoric. Many Jesuits, including Father Arrupe, were at the forefront of this movement, which came to be called liberation theology and concentrated on seeing Christ as the liberator. So, like, again, you could see
noted liberation theologians, Pope Francis.
Right, exactly. But you can see the right-wing headcanon forming here. Like this is one of, like, when I say this is one of the texts, all of the pillars are present here,
Yep. Actually, I like reading Gustavo Gutierrez, by the way.
I was on a space with D the other night and I was like, we could do a little liberation theology as a treat.
Just as a treat. Just as a treat. Yeah. Where was I? Oh yeah. Psychological problems are also involved in inducing people to look at the evidence concerning the insiders. People are usually comfortable with their old beliefs and conceptions. When Columbus told people the world was a ball and not a pancake, they were highly upset. Okay. Okay. They were being asked to reject their way of thinking of a lifetime and adopt a whole new outlook. Man, that is just like the boomer truth of Columbus was the guy who discovered the world was round.
Like a reminder to everybody, this guy has a history degree from Stanford.
Yeah.
And he's selling people on the flat earth, selling people like there's, in case you don't know this, in case you, dear reader, aren't aware of this, there's not really been in a widespread belief that the earth was flat since at least Plato. Like they thought it was a dodecahedron for a while, but they didn't think it was flat.
Yeah. 4 clubs, just for the record here. Don't badmouth Pope Francis. He witnessed a Eucharistic miracle when he was Archbishop. I mean, I was not badmouthing Pope Francis. Would not, despite our political disagreements. He was the Vicar of Christ on earth, and may he rest well. But he was literally a liberation theologian. That was literally was that. So, and he would not have denied that, and did not when asked. So
yeah, I know. He was he'd be the first one to tell you that's what he was.
Yeah, of course. Anyway, let's see. The intellectuals of the day scoffed at Columbus, and people were afraid they would lose social prestige if they listened to him. Many others just did not want to believe the world was round. It complicated too many things. And typical flat earthers had such a vested interest involving their own egos that they heaped abuse on Columbus for challenging their views of the universe. Don't confuse us with facts. Our minds are made up, they said. They did not say that. But okay. All right. Moving. Let's not get distracted by literally the actual facts of that particular bad example. These same factors apply today because the establishment controls the media. Anyone exposing the insiders will be the recipient of a continuous fusillade of invective from newspapers, magazines, TV, and radio. In this manner, one is threatened with a loss of social respectability if he dares to broach the idea that there is organization behind any of the problems currently racking America. Unfortunately, for many people, social status comes before intellectual honesty. Although they would never admit it, social position is more important to many people than is the survival of freedom in America. Do we want to weigh in? Do we want to weigh in on the obviousness of this point?
Well, I mean, so I would say this one. You don't got to tell me that that you'll be the recipient of a continuous fusillade of invective, because I have run afoul of these organizations and had my face plastered on the front of one of their magazines before. So yeah, you don't got to tell me twice.
You don't got to tell me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
can you hear me? Can you hear me flicking the lighter? By the way,
yes, of course I can. I can hear
add,
everything. Your gain is unbelievable. You got to get a better microphone.
Oh my god, it's oh no,
it picks up every little piece of shit.
It's sorry.
If you ask these people which is more important, social respectability or saving their children from slavery, they will tell you the latter, of course. But their actions, or lack of same, speak so much louder than their words. People have an infinite capacity for rationalization when it comes to refusing to face the threat to America's survival. Deep down, these people are afraid they may be laughed at if they take a stand, or may be denied an invitation to some social climber's cocktail party. Instead, I'm holding in so much I want to say about a social climber's cocktail party. Instead of getting mad at the insiders, these people actually get angry at these who are trying to save the country by exposing the conspirators. Oh, yes. One thing which makes it so hard for some socially minded people to assess the conspiratorial evidence objectively is that the conspirators come from the very highest social strata. They are immensely wealthy, highly educated, and extremely cultured. Many of them have lifelong reputations for philanthropy. Nobody enjoys being put in the position of accusing prominent people of conspiring to enslave their fellow Americans. But the facts are inescapable. Many business and professional people are particularly vulnerable to the "don't jeopardize your social respectability" pitch given by those who don't want the conspiracy exposed. The insiders know that if the business and professional community will not take a stand to save the private enterprise system, the socialism through which they intend to control the world will be inevitable. They believe that most business and professional men are too shallow and decadent, too status conscious, too tied up in the problems of their jobs and business to worry about what is going on in politics. These men are told that it might be bad for business or jeopardize their government contracts if they take a stand. They have been bribed into silence with their own tax monies.
Now, just to point out that what we've also outlined, so there is nothing new under the sun. What has just been outlined here is the high-low combined against the middle thesis that I guess who was the neo-reactionary that got kind of famous for this? Is not Spandrel. Yeah, so there's that's the Spandrel paragraph right there. It's like the high and low combined against the busy middle. But Alan and another guy that wrote another one of these books, he was a very close personal mentor of mine, wrote a book called Why Johnny Can't Think. They were a little bit more open about their
disdain for social climbers and what might be termed the bourgeoisie. I love that phrase though. I love calling people social climbers. That's that is my favorite way to insult someone.
There's always a if you identify someone as a climber and then you find someone who is attempting to seek their approval, and I saw this today, you get this feeling that it's like a flea on a flea.
Yes.
You know, and it's just like there's no sign that person does, that the second person, of course, does not know what time it is, other than seeking the approval of a climber, right?
Yes.
Like that's the anyway. It is a devastating thing to be regarded as. And I guess I'm concerned with social respectability. Obviously, I am. My mother did not name me Capitalisimo.
Right. And my mother didn't name me C. Sandbatch either. But I tried to use my real name, and y'all didn't like it and told me to change it back.
Yeah, C. Sandbatch sound is way more iconic. Sorry.
It was like such a good. I didn't even mean. I was like, oh, I guess this is my fucking name now.
Sorry, Russ.
Yeah.
We are hoping that the conspirators have underestimated the courage and patriotism remaining in the American people. We feel there are a sufficient number of you who are not mesmerized by the television set, who put God, family, and country above social status, who will band together to expose and destroy the conspiracy of insiders. The philosopher Diogenes,
Diogenes mentioned,
yeah, scoured the length and breadth of ancient Greece, searching for an honest man. We are scouring the length and breadth of America in search of hundreds of thousands of intellectually honest men and women who are willing to investigate facts and come to logical conclusions, no matter how unpleasant those conclusions may be.
It's time for the great silent majority of Americans to stand up and be counted.
Yeah. Yep. Silent majority. Silent majority just wants to grill. It's so true. Grill pilling is real, and it is fine. It's fine. It's fine to be grill pilled. That's the average state. That is the normal state of humanity.
Also that last paragraph was not really an appeal to the silent majority. It was an appeal to the schizo autist, is what it was.
Yes. And are you a schizo autist? Are you a disaffected loner? You want to throw in your lot with me? What have you got to lose?
Is your name Timothy McVeigh? I mean, this is one of the books in his canon.
I wonder if his real name is Communisimo.
Yeah, no, we gotta. I wish I could. We need to sneeze you a super chat for that one. That was a good one.
I'm not lying about being a millennial because I'm so tickled by puns. Like it's just. God. Oh, so tickled. I'm straight to the who's gal with me. Did you just call him a dirty dog? Chapter 2, Socialism. Royal Road to Power for the Super Rich. Royal Road mentioned. Yeah, subscribe to my lit RPG cultivation manhwa over on Royal Road. Enjoy that. Everyone knows that Adolf Hitler existed. I am an Adolf Hitler denier. No one disputes that. The terror and destruction
we just got a strike on YouTube.
We just got a YouTube strike for denying the existence. I'm a World War II denier. The conflict never occurred.
Have you ever personally seen a World War II?
Have you ever seen a World War II? Where is this World War II? I think you're confusing this World War II with something you saw on television. Perhaps Saving Private Ryan rings a bell.
Oh my God! This next
Inglorious Bastards.
This next paragraph is so signal heavy. I can't wait for it.
All right. The terror and destruction that this madman inflicted upon the world are universally recognized. Hitler came from a poor family which had absolutely no social position. He was a high school dropout because I'm sure that like late 19th century Germany had the exact same educational organization as modern as the
Yeah,
modern
I mean,
United States. I know it's the Prussian system, but
he was in Austria, by the way.
yeah,
also.
right. Austria, of course.
Nobody's
Of course,
right about
of course,
anything
he was an
here.
Austrian. He was an Austrian, of course. That nobody ever accused him of being cultured. Yet this man tried to conquer. I think a lot of people. Anyway, all right. Yet this man tried to conquer the world. During his early career, he sat in a cold garret and poured onto paper his ambitions to rule the world. We know that.
Almost none of that is true, by the way. Like just to calm the schizos in the audience, that we know almost none of that is true. We know Hitler was a highly cultured man. We know he didn't have plans to take over the entire world.
Yes.
Yada yada yada.
I actually love the Yarvin had that great tweet recently.
It was his best tweet ever. Actually,
it was so good. It was so good. It's like it was like we're told that we entered World War II to stop the Holocaust, which is not true. We entered while the Holocaust is a well documented event, we entered World War II allegedly to stop Adolf Hitler from conquering the world. He had no plans to conquer the world.
But then
something to that effect. He phrased it much better.
He had a flip around on it though, where it's like that. But then there was a well documented plan for the United States to do something, and it was like, oh, that's a good one, Curtis. You got me there. You got me.
Yeah.
Here's this paragraph right here is incredible. I did read ahead this time. Right.
Similarly, we know that a man named Vladimir Ilyich Lenin also existed. Like Hitler, Lenin did not spring from a family of social lions. The son of a petty bureaucrat, Lenin, who spent most of his adult life in poverty, has been responsible for the deaths of tens of millions of your fellow human beings and the enslavement of nearly 1 billion more. Like Hitler, Lenin sat up nights in a dank garret scheming how he could conquer the world. We know that too.
That's brilliant. That's like ancient Roman rhetoric, and I love there's this like perfect parallelism where you get Vladimir Ilyich Lenin like Hitler. It's beautifully arranged on the page. For people who don't understand publishing, that was a beautiful move.
Yeah, I mean it's almost the exact same length even.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
If it could not have been better organized if it was in meter, right? It is not theoretically possible that a billionaire could be sitting not in a garret but in a penthouse in Manhattan, London, or Paris, and dream the same dream as Lenin and Hitler. You will have to admit it is theoretically possible. Julius Caesar, a wealthy aristocrat, did. And such a man might form an alliance or an association with other like-minded men, might he not? Caesar did. This is a very Tucker Carlson cadence.
Yes.
Right? Yep. You have to admit that it's theoretically possible. Julius Caesar, a wealthy aristocrat, did. And such a man might form an alliance or association with other like-minded men, might he not? Caesar did. These men would be superbly educated, command immense social prestige, be able to pool astonishing amounts of money to carry out their purposes. There are advantages that Hitler and Lenin did not have.
You just slipped live reading, slipped straight back into the Tucker Carlson, and I mean, this is him. Tucker definitely uses the and what's sort of going on here. I was actually reading about this last night. There are theories that people will perceive you as more dishonest the more words you use with Latin origins and the longer sentences that you use. And so whenever you constrict everything into these little 2-word sentences, that's like
might he not?
Yeah, exactly. That's like that.
He mightn't.
He mustn't. He mightn't.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and of course he is laying out the uncontroversial statement that people who have a lot of resources will do things to guard those resources and to pursue their other aims. So it is difficult for the average individual to fathom such perverted lust for power. I mean, I say that I right after what I just said, he says this. I disagree. I think the average individual can absolutely fathom such perverted lust for power. Perhaps they could not have in 1971. The typical person of whatever nationality wants only to enjoy success in his job, to be able to afford a reasonably high standard of living, complete with leisure and travel. Okay, grill pulling, great.
He wants to grill, yeah.
Yeah. He wants to provide for his family in sickness and in health, and to give his children a sound education. His ambition stops there. He has no desire to exercise power over others, to conquer other lands or peoples, to be a king. He wants to mind his own business and enjoy life. Since he has no lust for power, it is difficult for him to imagine that there are others who have, others who march to a far different drum. But we must realize that there have been Hitlers and Lenins and Stalins and Caesars and Alexanders the Great throughout history. Why should we assume that there are no such men today with perverted lust for power? And if these men happen to be billionaires, is it not possible that they would use men like Hitler and Lenin as pawns to seize power for themselves? Yeah, I mean, sir. But of course, they also might not be billionaires. Like we're essentializing the wealth itself. Lots of people will try to tear down all sorts of things just so that they can get like $100,000 a year.
Well, and I have a message for all the Hitlers and the Lenins and the Stalins and the Caesars and the Alexander the Greats out there tonight.
Whatever they're paying you, I'll double it.
Yeah, sneed those super chats.
See those super chats. Indeed, difficult as this is to believe, such is the case. Like Columbus, we are faced with the task of convincing you that the world is not flat, as you have been led to believe all your life, but instead is round. We are going to present evidence that what you call communism is not run from Moscow or Peking. Oh, based Peking. Bring back Peking. But is an arm of a bigger conspiracy run from New York, London, and Paris. The man, not Paris.
It's like, this is long enough ago that people still thought Paris,
Yeah, people still thought of Paris, right? The largest Algerian city. The men at the apex of this movement are not communists in the traditional sense of that term. They feel no loyalty to Moscow or Peking. They are loyal only to themselves and their undertaking.
They're a band of ruthless cosmopolitan. What?
Yeah, right. These men certainly do not believe in the claptrap pseudo-philosophy of communism. They have no intention of dividing their wealth. Socialism is a philosophy which conspirators exploit, but in which only the naive believe. Just how finance capitalism is used as the anvil and communism as the hammer to conquer the world will be explained in this book. I don't necessarily think that socialism is a philosophy that only the naive believe in. I mean, especially not given Spandrel's already been mentioned, but especially since the sort of creation of bio-Leninism is something that a person can really believe in. And lots of people self-evidently do believe in because they're willing to go to the mat for it in ways that are absolutely contrary to their own
demonstrable self-interest. Like we're far enough along in this in this sort of towards this telos now that like when the Algerians are breaking into your like left bank townhouse, and you're still going to the ground for it. I'm like, all right, maybe he does believe this.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. There are bio-Leninists who have recently been fired from the United States government for directly refusing orders in fairly flagrant ways as acts of, in their mind, courage, right?
Civil disobedience. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are people who actually, may be pretty adversely affected by like cleaving to that ethos. They definitely believe it. Yeah, maybe they're naive. Maybe it does actually align with their interests because of their racial or ethnic or whatever background. But you know, and we should also acknowledge that bio-Leninism really is a fundamentally
Though I would
is
point out that,
is a fundamentally is a fundamentally communist association.
but I would quibble and say that bio-Leninism really more like that's what Spandrel calls it, but he's really referring to a set of like sort of physical effects that are downstream of a philosophy that may not necessarily explicitly enumerate them. You know, like bio-Leninism, I don't think is a philosophy. It's like
No, it's just the reframing of class struggle as ethnic struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, the germ of it. So you think of, you know, privilege, where you think of, you know, quote unquote, a privileged person, a straight white male is inherently privileged because he is a straight white male. It doesn't matter if he is literally homeless or what have you. He has or there are laws that incentivize you to employ anyone other than him.
Which, by the way, if you didn't catch our Jolly West special episode, I spent a long time in that, I think, explaining what the actual reason for that is. And it's because like privilege is sort of a like code switching for doesn't believe everything you tell them to believe, you know, but
right. Yeah. Apologize. Anyhow, the concept that communism is but an arm of a larger conspiracy has become increasingly apparent throughout the author's journalistic investigations. He has had the opportunity to interview privately 4 retired officers who spent their careers in high military intelligence, much of which the author knows he learned from them. And the story is known to several thousand others. High military intelligence circles are well aware of this network. In addition, they are this network. In addition, the author has interviewed 6 men who have spent considerable time as investigators for congressional committees. In 1953, one of these men, Norman Dodd, had headed the Reese Committee's investigation of tax-free foundations. Oh boy. When Mr. Dodd began delving into the role of international high finance in the world revolutionary movement, the investigation was killed on orders from the Eisenhower-occupied White House. According to Mr. Dodd, it is permissible to investigate the radical bomb throwers in the streets, but when you begin to trace their activities back to their origins in the legitimate world, the political Iron Curtain slams down. And this is Dodd of Dodd-Frank.
And it's also like Stormy Waters' @handle is Norman Dodd New.
Yeah, right. That's true. Oh man. You can believe anything you want about communism, except that it is a conspiracy run by men from the respectable world. People will often say to an active anti-communists, I can understand your concern with communism, but the idea that communist conspiracy is making great inroads in the United States is absurd. The American people are anti-communist. They're not about to buy communism. It's understandable to be concerned about communism in Africa or Asia or South America with their tremendous poverty, ignorance, and disease. But to be concerned about communism in the United States, where the vast majority of people have no sympathy with it whatsoever, is a misspent concern. You like how he worked in PID there without giving you the acronym so that you can pick it out and then mention it like I have just done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's also worth pointing out that this was the thing that the John Birch Society did that got the book thrown at them. So, I mean, there is some truth here. They were very interested in turning the anti-communist cannons around and pointing them at America. And there were quite a few. I mean, there were like serious purges. Like one of the John Birchers. I don't know if you've ever. I don't know, Cap, if you've ever run into my friend 45K Mommy Populous, or if you've heard me mention him before. But he was like very into the idea. He was like, this dude was a serious Bircher. And he was like into the idea that the Nixon administration was aggressively snuffing out internal investigators of communism. And he placed the turning point of the United States towards like the careening crash that we've been in at the moment James Jesus Angleton was fired from the CIA counterintelligence desk. So this is
that's the like pebble that starts the avalanche. That is extremely specific.
Yeah.
Wow. I would love to know the chain of events. You can believe anything you want about communism, except that, I already read that. On the face of it, that is a very logical and plausible argument. The American people are indeed anti-communist. Suppose you were to lay this book down right now, pick up a clipboard and head for the nearest shopping center to conduct a survey of Americans' attitudes about communism. Sir, you say to the first person you encounter, we would like to know if you are for or against communism. Most people would probably think you were putting them on. If we stuck to our survey, we would find that 99% of people are anti-communist. We probably would be hard put to find anybody who would take an affirmative stand for communism. I'm pretty sure if I fucking did that, I'd get like maybe like 55-45 against.
Yeah, I think it would be a little stronger against, but like well over 30% are probably, especially if you switch out socialism with communism.
Oh, for sure.
If you switch out socialism with communism, you might get a majority favorable opinion at this point.
Yeah. You might have people saying like, "Whoa, what do you mean?" Like, what do you specifically mean? And then, so then the answer is favorable, but I need to know the exact flavor, right?
Yeah. Like, what are we talking Mao communism?
Yeah. It's if someone can specifically articulate the differences, they are either a right-wing extremist or they are a
that's like one of the things here is that this middle that this book is addressed to, has largely disappeared in the last 10 years or so. Now it's everybody has strong opinions one way or the other about these things now.
Yep. So on the surface, it appears that the charges made against anti-communists concerned with the internal threat of communism are valid. The American people are not pro-communist. But before our imaginary interviewee walks away in disgust with what he believes is a hokey survey, you add, "Sir, before you leave, there are a couple of other questions I would like to ask. You wouldn't find these quite so insulting or ludicrous. Your next question is, what is communism? Would you define it, please?" This is going to give you a bad survey responses. Write all this shit down. Immediately, a whole new situation has developed. Rather than the near unanimity previously found, we now have... God damn it, he's just saying the thing that we just said.
And meanwhile, Woodpit 420 is over here in the chat saying, people don't even know the definition of communism.
Yeah, right. Immediately, a whole new situation has developed. Rather than the near unanimity previously found, we now have an incredible diversity of ideas. There are a multitude of opinions on what communism is. Some will say, "Oh yes, communism. Well, that's a tyrannical brand of socialism." Others will maintain communism, as it was originally intended by Karl Marx, was a good idea, but it has never been practiced, and the Russians have loused it up. A more erudite type might proclaim communism is simply a rebirth of Russian imperialism. If perchance one of the men you asked to define communism happened to be a political science professor from the local college, he might reply, "You can't ask what is communism. That is a wholly simplistic question about an extremely complex situation. Communism today, quite unlike the view held by the right-wing extremists in America, is not an international monolithic movement. Rather, it is a polycentric, fragmented, nationalistic movement deriving its character through the charismas of its various national leaders. While, of course, there is the welding of Hegelian dialectics with Feuerbachian materialism held in common by the communist parties generally, it is a monumental oversimplification to ask, what is communism? Instead, you should ask, what is the communism of Mao Zedong? What is the communism of the late Ho Chi Minh or Fidel Castro or Marshal Tito?
Hegelian e-girls mentioned.
Bakunin, once again, not mentioned. If you think we are being facetious here, you have talked to a political science professor lately. For the above is the prevailing view on our campuses, not to mention in our State Department. In our State Department, in our State Department currently, well, not currently, I guess. In our State Department 6 months ago, the answer was good. What is communism? It's good. Whether you agree or disagree with any of these definitions, whereas I don't actually think that the State Department was full of active communists. I think it was full of plenty of people who wanted additional political power and didn't actually care about what undergirded them.
That's one of the things, and there's an argument that they're doing a de-dimensionalization because again, they just like we just treated the average person in like Kenosha, Wisconsin, as though they're political science professors or part of their social circle. Have you talked to a political scientist? Like, no, I work 60 hours at a steel mill a week. Do you think I'm like? How much time do you think I spend like hobnobbing with political scientists? Yeah, like what the hell is a political scientist? But this is one of the more pernicious things that I'll still see this like sort of like rooted around the FDR administration. Here I am doing my FDR revisionism, revising the FDR revisionism, but like. To say that the FDR administration was riddled with communists is probably wrong. To say that the FDR administration was riddled with incredibly ambitious people who were willing to overlook dirty aspects of like sort of communist sympathizers and communist practice to get their own goals accomplished. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Let's see. If you think, whether you agree or disagree with any of these definitions, or as may well be the case, you have one of your own, one thing is undeniable. No appreciable segment of the anti-communist American public can agree on just what it is that they are against. Isn't that frightening? Here we have something that almost everybody agrees is bad, but we can't agree on just what it is we are against. How would this work in a football game, for example? Can you imagine how effective the defense of a football team would be if the front four could not agree with the linebackers, who could not agree with the cornerbacks, who could not agree with the safety men, who could not agree with the assistant coaches, who could not agree with the head coach, as to what kind of defense they should put up against the offense being presented? The obvious result would be chaos. You could take a sandlot team and successfully pit them against the Green Bay Packers if the Packers couldn't agree on what it is they're opposing. That is academic. The first principle in any encounter, whether it be football or war, hot or cold, is this: know your enemy. The American people do not know their enemy. Consequently, it is not strange at all that for 3 decades we have been watching one country of the world after another fall behind the communist curtain. Go ahead.
I say now, I would like to point out that he's decrying right-wing infighting here. So, like, again, nothing new under the sun. He's right. Like, so whenever you see like so many of these things, like if you put all of this discourse on Twitter, you will get the Twitter is like more or less exactly the sort of petri dish sandlot football game that he's like imagining in a thought experiment here. So I'll get like nothing new under the sun. There's actually another great book that I thought about mentioning as an LMD supplement. It's called "It Usually Begins with Ayn Rand." It's a book about right-wing activism in the early days, and the social circles that clustered around like Murray Rothbard and Ayn Rand.
Okay.
And you'll see nothing ever changes.
Nothing ever changes. That's right. No, I mean, and yeah, who did they even talk about before Ayn Rand as the on-ramp for sensitive young men? Who did they mention? All right. Let's see. In keeping with the fact that almost everybody seems to have his own definition of communism, we are going to give you ours, and then we will attempt to prove to you that it is the only valid one. Communism, an international conspiratorial drive for power on the part of men in high places willing to use any means to bring about their desired aim, global conquest. Okay. I obviously agree that exists. I think communism is a bad word for it. But okay, let's continue. You will notice that actually, you know what that is. He's just attempting to frame the thing he doesn't like as the thing he knows other people don't like.
Which
right?
nobody we know has ever done that before.
Nobody has ever done that. I can't even think of a single instance that somebody that I know or like has ever done exactly that thing every single time.
We're looking at you, Gabe.
Hey, what does noticing mean? You will notice that we did not mention Marx, Engels, Lenin, Trotsky, bourgeois, proletariat, or dialectical materialism. We said nothing of the pseudo-economics or political philosophy of the communists. These are the techniques of communism and should not be confused with the communist conspiracy itself. We did call it an international conspiratorial drive for power. Unless we understand the conspiratorial nature of communism, we don't understand it at all. We will be eternally fixated at the Gus Hall level of communism. And that's not where it's at, baby. I don't know what that means. He's making a cultural reference that is 50 years out of date.
That one's beyond my reclamation, so It's probably pretty obscure.
Yep. The way to bring down the wrath of the liberal press establishment or the professional liberals is simply to use the word conspiracy in relation to communism. We are not supposed to believe that communism is a political conspiracy. We can believe anything else we wish to about it. We can believe that it is brutal, tyrannical, evil, or even that it intends to bury us. And we will win the plaudits of the vast majority of American people. But don't ever use the word conspiracy if you expect applause. For that is when the wrath of liberaldom will be unleashed against you. We are not disallowed from believing all types of conspiracy, just modern political conspiracy. True. We know that down through the annals of history, small groups of men have existed who have conspired to bring the reins of power into their hands, of course. History books are full of their schemes. Even Life magazine believes in conspiracies like the Cosa Nostra, where men conspire to make money through crime. You might recall that Life did a series of articles on the testimony of Joseph Valachi before the McClellan Committee, several years ago. There are some aspects of those revelations which are worth noting. Most of us did not know the organization was called Cosa Nostra. Until Valachi sang, all we thought it was named was the Mafia. That's how little we knew about this group, despite the fact that it was a century old and had been operating in many countries with a self-perpetuating clique of leaders. We didn't even know it by its proper name. It is not possible a political conspiracy. Is it not possible a political conspiracy might exist, waiting for a Joseph Valachi to testify? Is Dr. Carol Quigley the Joseph Valachi of political conspiracies? I mean, at what point do you just say, I mean, we're obviously at that point, but you say there's not, can it really be called a conspiracy when the vast majority of like the power structure is like self-confessedly a participant in something, right? Like it's just referred to now as our democracy or something. Or the international rules-based order. That's just how it gets referred to. So I don't know at what point it just ceases to be a conspiracy and starts being the exoteric power structure. But
right,
yeah. We see that everybody, even Life magazine, believes in some sort of conspiracy. The question is, which is the more lethal form of conspiracy, criminal or political? And what is the difference between a member of the Cosa Nostra and a communist, or more properly, an insider conspirator? Men like Lucky Luciano, who have scratched and clawed to the top of the heap in organized crime, must, of necessity, be diabolically brilliant, cunning, and absolutely ruthless. But, almost without exception, the men in the hierarchy of organized crime have had no formal education. They were born into poverty and learned their trade in the back alleys of Naples, New York, or Chicago
I
mentioned.
love the low key blasted Italian Americans there. Like there's
I mean, Italian, so millennial Italians having mostly existed in a time post mafia. It's just fun, right? Like it's just kind of a lot of fun. But Greatest Generation and even some boomer Italians still get kind of like offended by mentioning the mafia. Like, by the way, like they don't like it because they have experienced times where people thought they were criminals because of it. So I don't know. I look forward to a day where Black Americans can have the same sort of response. Now, suppose someone with this same amoral, grasping personality were born into a patrician family of great wealth and was educated at the best prep schools, then Harvard, Yale, or Princeton, followed by graduate work, possibly at Oxford. In these institutions, he would become totally familiar with history, economics, psychology, sociology, and political science. After having graduated from such illustrious establishments of higher learning, are we likely to find him out on the streets peddling 50-cent tickets to a numbers game? Would you find him pushing marijuana to high schoolers or running a string of houses of prostitution? Would he be getting involved in gangland killings? Not at all. For with that sort of education, this person would realize that if one wants power, real power, the lessons of history say, get into the government business, become a politician and work for political power, or better yet, get some politicians to front for you. That's where the real power is and the real money. Conspiracy to seize the power of government is as old as government itself. We can study the conspiracies surrounding Alcibiades in Greece or Julius Caesar in ancient Rome. But we are not supposed to think that men today scheme to achieve political power. Very true. Very true. Yeah. And this is, and that again, as I've mentioned a couple times, is the sort of the crux of this entire book, that people today will hatch plans to get political power. I don't know. Do you think that there's some level of, and I'm going to use our own modern shibbolethtic lexicon maybe to say competency crisis. Do you think that maybe there's just like a level of competency crisis where they don't realize that it was a conspiracy? Like they don't realize that they should like maybe hide some of these things, and so you get just very out and out say nonprofit operations that are clearly just using government money to violate laws. Do you think people just got fucking lazy?
Absolutely, that's what I think. It is absolutely, I think, yeah.
Like it's not like it's not even necessarily that we exist in a time period where the narrative protections have broken down, but they're just like not actually realizing this is something that people would be upset about if they noticed.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a little disheartening, actually. That's a sad possibility. But I can't exactly say that it's not the case. Let's see. Every conspirator has two things in common with every other conspirator. He must be an accomplished liar and a far-seeing planner. Whether you are studying Hitler, Alcibiades, Julius Caesar, or some of our contemporary conspirators, you will find that their patient planning is almost overwhelming. We repeat FDR's statement: in politics, nothing happens by accident. If it happens, you can bet it was planned that way. In reality, communism is a tyranny planned by power seekers whose most effective weapon is the big lie. And if one takes all the lies of communism and boils them down, you will find they distill into two major lies out of which all others spring. They are: one, communism is inevitable, and two, communism is a movement of the downtrodden masses rising up against exploiting bosses. So, communism is inevitable. This is something that I think is also a major risk, right? Like the left will do things like, say, late stage capitalism, or the right side of history, in a way that is triumphalist, and which actually causes them to behave in a less astute way, right? So they were trapped by their own successes, I think. And I don't mean to say that we are winning, or we are so back, or something like that. But they could have really locked it up. If if they had like a little bit more humility. You know what I'm saying? I assume you do.
Oh my God! I've been like my keyboard has been, my microphone has been muted. I've been like nodding along, being like fuck yeah. But no, it's absolutely true, and it's been really entertaining to like it's like fun to say we're so back and everything like that. But like to me, like over the course of really in an accelerated mode in the last 6 or 7 years, like as the Obama administration, the real hardcore motherfuckers from the Obama administration have like sort of phased out, like the Rahm Emanuels and everything is phased out. It's not. Felt like it's not so much that we're winning so much as the other side is
your
getting way worse.
Shallow as fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, no, I mean even the Clinton thing. I mean, fuck, the fact that Trump was even the nominee was at least partially due to a Democrat conspiracy. Right.
Yes.
Which is,
they tried to kill him and fucked it up. Like, I mean, come on.
No. I mean, literally in 2016, the reason why he was the nominee was that Claire McCaskill, who was the head of Hillary Clinton's campaign, Claire McCaskill, was the last Democratic senator of Missouri, and she won by basically controlling all of the people that she ran against.
Yeah.
And so when there was this big this big Republican primary to pick the person who would go up against Obama's replacement after 8 years of getting absolutely fucking curb stomped, right? The Clinton and McCaskill campaign, or the Clinton campaign, was like, how do we use our many media connections to sort of like get our best opponent? And they thought that Trump was too ridiculous. They could not conceive of themselves losing to Donald Trump. And so like it is the Clinton campaign which gave him the initial push out of the sort of like also rans into actual prominence. Anyone who was alive during that time realized that that was basically the first time that he was just getting mentioned constantly. There were like 14 people running. There were like 14 people running in that primary, and everyone else just got completely overshadowed by Trump's, like, I guess you would call it earned media now, but it was handed to him at the beginning.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I probably remember it a little bit better than some people do, but like I remember, especially the early debates, just realized I was like, this dude's. I mean, he's just cutting through them like a knife through hot butter, because they are fundamentally unaware of what they're dealing with, and it's I don't know. That all seems ancient history now.
It all seems like ancient history, but it's like. It's 2 election cycles, right? It's 2 election cycles back. It's 8 years, but anyway, the point is that there was a conspiracy that caused him to It was a conspiracy born of overconfidence on the part of the left to like it to lock this thing up for one person's specific ambition. Literally, Hillary Clinton like put her time in, and it was her turn.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so like those petty like, and then they had no fucking backbench because so yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's decadence.
Yeah, it was just a ridiculous decline. So, but in any case, yeah, here we are, and that was the real history. You can put that in your back pocket, everyone listening. But yeah, so the triumphalism has defeated them before in very like consequential ways. In reality, communism is let us go back to our imaginary survey and analyze our first big lie of communism, that it is inevitable. You will recall that we asked our interviewee if he was for or against communism, and then we asked him to define it. Now we are going to ask him, sir, do you think communism is inevitable in America? And in almost every case, the response will be something like this. Oh, well, no, I don't think so. You know how Americans are. We're a little slow sometimes in reacting to danger. You remember Pearl Harbor, but the American people would never sit still for communism. Next we ask, I love these fucking straw man. Like it's like goddamn. Next we ask, well then, do you think that socialism is inevitable in America? The answer in almost every case will be similar to this. I'm no socialist, you understand. But I see what's going on in this country. Yeah, I'd have to say that socialism is inevitable. And then we ask our interviewee, since you say you are not a socialist, but you feel the country is being socialized, why don't you do something about it? His response will rim. I'm only one person. Besides, it's inevitable. You can't fight City Hall. Ha ha ha. Don't you know that the boys down at City Hall are doing everything they can to convince you of that? How effectively can you oppose anything if you feel your opposition is futile? Giving your opponent the idea that defending himself is futile is as old as warfare itself. In about 500 BC, the Chinese warlord philosopher Sun Tzu stated, "Supreme excellence in warfare lies in the destruction of your enemy's will to resist in advance of the perceptible hostilities." We call it psi-war or psychological warfare today. In poker, it's called running a good bluff. The principle's the same. Thus, we have the American people, anti-communist, but unable to define it, and anti-socialist, but thinking it's inevitable. How did Marx view communism? How important is the inevitability of communism to communists? What do the communists want you to believe is inevitable? Communism? Excuse me. Or socialism? Excuse me again. If you study Marx's Communist Manifesto, you will find that in essence, Marx said the proletarian revolution would establish the socialist dictatorship of the proletariat. To achieve the socialist dictatorship of the proletariat, three things would have to be accomplished. 1, the elimination of all right to private property. 2, the dissolution of the family unit. And 3, destruction of what Marx referred to as the opiate of the people, religion. Marx went on to state that when the dictatorship of the proletariat had accomplished these three things throughout the world, and after some undetermined length of time, as you can imagine, he was very vague on this point, the all-powerful state would miraculously wither away and state socialism would give way to communism. You wouldn't need any government at all. Everything would be peace, sweetness, and light, and everybody would live happily ever after. But first, all communists must work to establish socialism. Can't you just see Karl Marx really believing that an omnipotent state would wither away? Or can you imagine that a Joseph Stalin or any other man with the cunning and ruthlessness necessary to rise to the top of the heap in an all-powerful dictatorship would voluntarily dismantle the power he had built by fear and terror? Well, depends on what you thought about Gorbachev. But Gary Allen had never heard of Mikhail Gorbachev. So Karl Marx was hired by a mysterious group who called themselves the League of Just Men to write the Communist Manifesto as demagogic boob bait to appeal to the mob. Boob bait mentioned. Where is Gabe? Is Gabe in chat? In actual fact, the Communist Manifesto was in circulation for many years before Marx's name was widely enough recognized to establish his authorship for his revolutionary handbook. All Karl Marx really did was to update and codify the very same revolutionary plans and principles set down 70 years earlier by Adam Weishaupt, the founder of the Order of Illuminati in Bavaria. And it is widely acknowledged by serious scholars of the subject that the League of Just Men was simply an extension of the Bavarian Illuminati, which was forced to go deep underground after it was exposed by a raid in 1786 conducted by the Bavarian authorities. Socialism could be bait, the excuse to establish the dictatorship. Since dictatorship is hard to sell in idealistic terms, the idea had to be added that the dictatorship was just a temporary necessity and would soon dissolve of its own accord. You really have to be naive to swallow that, but millions do. Billions even. Billions must. Oh man. I think that the Bavarian Illuminati is a brief interlude. I don't know that we're gonna get a whole lot more of that.
You got to reach down there and you got to reach down there and grab it. You know, if
you got to grab the Bavarian Illuminati.
If you're gonna write a white knuckled right wing conspiracy book, you have to include the Bavarian Illuminati.
Yep. The drive to establish socialism, not communism, is at the core of everything the communists and the insiders do. Marx and all of his successors in the communist movement have ordered their followers to work on building socialism. If you go hear an official communist speaker, he never mentions communism. He will speak only of the struggle to complete the socialization of America. If you go to a communist bookstore, you will find that all of their literature pushes the theme. It does not call for the establishment of communism, but socialism. And many members of the establishment push the same theme. The September 1970 issue of New York Magazine contains an article by Harvard professor John Kenneth Galbraith, himself a professed socialist, entitled Richard Nixon and the Great Socialist Revival. In describing what he calls the Nixon game plan, Galbraith states, Mr. Nixon is probably not a great reader of Marx, but his advisors, Drs. Burns, Schultz, and McCracken, are excellent scholars who know him well and could have brought the president abreast, and it is beyond denying that the crises that aided the rush into socialism was engineered by the administration. Dr. Galbraith began his article by stating, certainly the least predicted development under the Nixon administration was this great new thrust to socialism. One encounters people who still aren't aware of it. Others must be rubbing their eyes, for certainly the portents seemed all too contrary. As an opponent of socialism, Mr. Nixon seemed steadfast. Galbraith then proceeds to list the giant steps towards socialism taken by the Nixon administration. The conclusion one draws from this article is that socialism, whether it be the Democrat or Republican parties, is inevitable. Fellow Harvard socialist Dr. Arthur Schlesinger has said much the same. The chief liberal gains in the past generally remain on the statute books when conservatives recover power. Liberalism grows constantly more liberal, and by the same token, conservatism grows constantly less conservative. Where have we heard such a statement before? Where have we heard that?
It's the whole thing. You know, it's
the whole thing. Have things changed ever? Has it just gotten worse, guys?
Somebody call Aaron McIntyre.
Oh, what about Oron?
Yeah, this is the script he runs. He probably sticks closer to the script than anybody else because he's like traffics and boomers, and the boomers are they're the most susceptible to these this kind of shock.
It's the same every time. Yeah, every time. Yeah, I mean that's why you gotta repeal laws. You gotta get rid of things. Currently, and I mean I don't think Gary Allen could have conceived of this, but the case where some presidents get to write executive orders that then subsequent presidents cannot reverse is wild. It turns out there's one president who can't reverse executive orders. There's only one of them, and it's the same one this time around as it was 5 years ago, when he couldn't do it then either for some reason. But here we are. I'm sure that all the precedents will be applied to the next time a Democrat gets into office. I suppose by saying that a Democrat will get into office again, I am just conceding. I'm saying that our defeat is inevitable. Maybe any Republican being in office is also a defeat. I happen to think that we truly have an anti-regime administration at the moment, to the degree that such a thing is possible and not inherently contradictory. But here we are. All right. Galbraith then proceeds as the chief liberal. I already read this. All right. Many extremely patriotic individuals have innocently fallen for the conspiracy's line. Walter Trohan, columnist emeritus, for the Chicago Tribune and one of America's outstanding political commentators, has accurately noted, it is a known fact that the policies of the government today, whether Republican or Democratic, are closer to the 1932 platform of the Communist Party than they are to either of their own party platform in that critical year. More than 100 years ago, in 1848 to be exact, Karl Marx promulgated his program for the socialized state in the Communist Manifesto. And Mr. Trohan has also been led to believe that the trend is inevitable. Conservatives should be realistic enough to recognize that this country is going deeper into socialism and will see expansions of federal power, whether Republican or Democrats are in power. The only comfort they may have is that the pace will be slower under Richard M. Nixon than it might have been under Hubert H. Humphrey. Conservatives are going to have to recognize that the Nixon administration will embrace most of the socialism of the Democratic administrations, while professing to improve it. The establishment promotes the idea of the inevitability of communism through its perversion of terms used in describing the political spectrum. See chart one, right over here.
Now, at this point, he sounds exactly like the people that I used to work for. Who, like,
really?
I was still working.
Well, look at the chart.
Yeah, no, but I was still working for them whenever the like pro-Nixon sort of Nixon revivalism started taking hold, and like they would start foaming at the mouth when anybody would say like, "Oh, not Nixon, the communist," open China up. He was like, open this up to these Maoists, you know. Also, like, point out that every time Hubert Humphrey is mentioned, every time
you think of Hunter S. Thompson.
I was like, you voted for Hubert Humphrey and
you killed Jesus.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. The establishment. God. We're told that on the far left of the political spectrum, we find communism, which is admittedly dictatorial. But we're also told that that equally to be feared is the opposite of the far left, i.e., the far right, which is labeled fascism. We are constantly told that we should try to stay in the middle of the road, which is termed democracy, but by which the establishment means Fabian or creeping socialism. The fact that the middle of the road has been moving inexorably leftward for 40 years is ignored. Reminder, this book was written more than 50 years ago.
They didn't even know who Cthulhu was yet.
Well, of course they had him, but it would have been a weirder reference than it is today somehow. Yeah. God. Here is an excellent example of the use of false alternatives. We are given the choice between communism, international socialism, on one end of the spectrum, Nazism, National Socialism on the other end, or Fabian socialism in the middle. The real socialists are the right wingers. The whole spectrum is socialist. This is absurd. Where would you put an anarchist on this spectrum? Where do you put a person in the middle of the horseshoe? Where do you put a person who believes in a constitutional republic and the free enterprise system? He is not represented here. Yet this spectrum is used for political definitions by a probable 90% of the people in the nation. There is an accurate political spectrum. It's a 2-axis quadrant system. And if you take it, I guarantee you'll find out you're a libertarian. They can't keep happening. Communism is by definition total government. If you have total government, it makes little difference whether you call it communism, fascism, socialism, Caesareanism, or Pharaohism. It's all pretty much the same from the standpoint of people who must live and suffer under it. Not N-O-T, all capitals, true.
I love
Not
this.
true.
I love the I love the capitals thing. Like, it's one of my favorite things ever.
Yes. If total government by any of its pseudonyms stands on the far left, then by logic the far right should represent anarchy or no government. Oh God. Chart 1 depicts a false left-right political spectrum used by liberals, which has communism on the far left and its twin fascism on the far right. The middle of the road being Fabian socialism. The entire spectrum is socialist. Dear God. Chart 2 is a more rational political spectrum with total government in any form on the far left and no government or anarchy on the far right. The U.S. was a republic with limited government, but for the past 60 years, we have been moving leftward across the spectrum towards government with each new piece of socialist legislation. Man, look, living under Caesar versus living under like Stalin, real fucking different for the people who lived under Caesar versus Stalin.
I love these charts. Like, they're like, in like information visualization theory. But in fact, if I upload a screen cap here to ChatGPT and say critique the use of charts here, it'll tell me these charts bring nothing to the table whatsoever.
Okay, hold on. So, but again, who was not mentioned earlier was Bakunin.
It's true,
right?
Well, yeah,
the anarcho-syndicalist. Like the anarchist socialist who thought you did not need to go through state socialism, which, regardless of like whether or not that is rational or even desirable, like the ethos exists. So what do we do? What do we do with, like, is it only anarcho-capitalism and anarcho-syndicalism like literally doesn't exist? What do we do if we want, like, what's like anarcho, like Afro eco-anarchism? Like, so, like what about Savannah nationalists?
It's called Duganism.
Duganism. Yes. Well, I mean, multipolarity is just what if we. The Duganist multipolarity is just what if we did the America's 1990s, but in Russia. Like that's Dugan's entire like practical observation.
What if we do hyperrealism in America? Like, what if we speed, like, have you ever heard of Crocodile?
Yes. Yes, I have heard of Crocodile. What if we all did Crocodile? What is the is that right? Is it right wing or left wing for everyone to do Crocodile? Number one, it's a little socialist because everyone's doing it. But on the other hand, it would be total anarchy.
On the other hand, not even Nick Land will touch this shit.
It would be Landy and hot anarchy. Hot anarchy versus cold anarchy. Like, Land wrote something. What was it? It was in Agorism Quarterly or whatever the hell it was.
I fucking love the word agorism. Like, if you hear the word agorism, you immediately.
Dude, would you not? Do you not want to live in the Agora? All my homies want to live in the Agora.
It reminds me, whenever in the TRS days, there was a guy, J.O. De La Rey, was a podcaster from the old TRS days. And he referred to himself like first of all, he was a spook. He was like straight up fucking spook,
Straight up spook,
unmasked as a spook. But he was on the TRS death panel, which was like their inner circle. So we don't need to relitigate any of that. But like in like Skype chats and shit like that, he would refer to his past, and he'd be like, "So I was running an agorist pharmacy in South Chicago." Be like, so you were selling drugs, man.
Agorist pharmacy, yes. Freestyle street chemistry. What do you do? I do imports, export. I do importing, exporting.
Yes. Art Vandalay, import, exports.
Oh my God. Okay. In any case, this chart is whack. Sorry, sorry, boomers. This fucking doesn't make any goddamn sense. God, look at this thing.
But it's
look at this fucking thing. Give me Caesar. Give me Pharaoh.
Yeah,
pharaohs were at least Greek. Pharaohs were Greek. That was.
I don't know shit about Pharaohism, but it sounds pretty based, Like,
yeah.
This is like the chart thing is like there's an Art Vandalay was an architect. Excuse me. But there's a great book about it's a very well known, it's like the Bible of information, like information visualization and presentation. I can't think of the name of it initially.
Okay.
But whenever I worked, and I even have documents that I kind of want to just bring up and present, but they would like give away that I'm not making up these stories that I tell about myself. And I kind of like the idea that people just think, well, there goes Sandbatch bullshitting about shit he's never done before. But like they would, whenever I would write like white papers for him and things like that, they'd be like, take that back and put a chart in here. And like there's no reason for a chart. Why
would I put a chart in?
There's no chartable data to present here. And they would be like, charts look good. People believe charts.
People believe charts. People fucking love charts. Look at this fucking chart. Oh, it's awesome. It's look at it. You got one color here, you got another color in the middle, you got another color on the other end, and like this other one's more convincing because it's got this gray area. Yeah. All right. Anyway.
Yeah. No. Actually, here. Look. I'm gonna do one here.
Logo. It should have blown up the logo. It did not blow up the logo. Baby in Society logo. It does look pretty good. I'm gonna be real. Looks good. Ah, yes, the anarchist symbol. You've probably seen it before on some sort of tough guy's jacket.
Wait. Hold on. If I hit the present button, will it fuck everything up?
I don't know.
Let's see.
Try it. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. Right. Like this is a chart that I was asked to insert into a boomer white paper. It presents
just share of industries by what? What is the vertical?
There's not really. It's percentile, but it's just totally arbitrary. It comes out of a document that they had me name.
Well, what was all the other shit in 2014?
Yeah, it's like a study on the feasibility of lifting sanctions against Kaspersky, Laugh, JFC, and rehabilitating its U.S. public image. Like it's such a dumbass. Like,
wait, so what? So this thing is supposed to be like in 2024, IT and the feasibility of lifting IT and telecom sanctions. It's just sort of like linearly increased.
Yes. And then they also first of all, there's like so many things wrong with this. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's way too much to be shown here. And they specified, they sat and agonized over this color scheme for a while. And this color scheme is fucking terrible.
Wait a minute. How the fuck is others? How does others not? Why does it not add to 100 if you have others?
I don't know. I never figured. I was like, this is me sitting, and they were like, no, put that shit in there, and I'm like, oh my god. And inexplicably we got that contract. I don't know. I don't know.
Miserable. You are the worst. You are the worst for contributing to this thing. Oh, God. Woodpit, the Virgin Charter versus the Chad personal anecdote. Yes. Or made up historical event. Like complete with dialogue.
This Chat GPT hallucinations as like sort of grant leverage is what it is. Like, we're starting a whole, this is a startup. We will get Chat GPT to hallucinate random data that backs up your case.
Yes. I mean, how, speaking of that, it wouldn't be.
Wait, hold on, Big Ben. I'm gonna like that's. I am not a fucking coon ass. I am not actually. I'm gonna find you. I'm gonna find you.
Well, we know where he is. He's in London.
My first ever personal threat on YouTube. I'm gonna find you and eat your liver.
Oh well, if you eat only a small portion of it, that might not actually be. That might not actually be fatal because it does grow back. You could just eat one lobe, one lobe at a time. All right, anarchist symbol. We've seen it before, probably. It takes me back to the days of being 13 and playing Vampire the Masquerade and picking Bruja because they were the cool punks, and I was really into the Dead Kennedys at the time. And now I really do just want to kill the poor. But anyway.
It started out as a joke, but
then it became not a joke. Jello Biafra, ye would not like me. Anyway, our founding fathers revolted against the near total government of the English monarchy, but they knew that having no government at all would lead to chaos. So they said, but no government at all is the most right-wing thing. Right? That's what we're arguing. Yes. So we don't want to be the most right-wing thing. We want to be we want to be sensible centrist. Okay, he's selling his solution as sensible centrism. There we go. Okay, I got it. So they set up a constitutional republic with a very limited government. They knew that men prospered in freedom. Although the free enterprise system is not mentioned specifically in the Constitution, it is the only one which can exist under a constitutional republic. Bold claim. Okay. All collectivist systems.
We're falling back on the party line here now. And by the way, EL over here says Sandbatch giggling as he sustains himself on your liver and 68-cent ramen he bought on clearance. Groiper.
Oh my God. You know what, Sandbatch? The most catastrophic thing you could possibly do is make sure that dog shit graph you were forced to create works its way into the training data of as many LLMs as possible. You could, I mean, there's a whole like you could be the first data terrorist. You could just make the most dog shit, poorly reasoned crap. Make it. You should train one LLM just to pump that shit out in places where it will be taken as training data for other LLMs.
Let me spool this. Let me pause and spool. That chart was whipped up in an apartment in Moscow while I was hungover at 3:00 in the morning, listening to these boomers who had spent their entire budget on one giant dinner before the night before this meeting had to occur, and they're like pencil whipping it at 3:00 in the morning, and they call me in and they're like, "You got to fix," because they didn't know how to work a computer. They didn't know how to work computers, so they had to wake me up and like bring me in to build their fucking shitty graph for them. It was one of the worst nights of my life, actually.
Amazing. Okay. Well, I guess you've already done your penance, but I still think that you should try to give LLMs brain damage.
Yeah, I'm all about it.
Just going to throw that out there. All right.
The second person, by the way, to accuse me of having a terrifying Joker laugh, Semiagog says the same thing.
Oh, yeah, EL. Sandbatch has a Joker laugh. It's kind of terrifying. Really, Oliver, Mr. Semiagog, believes that you have a Joker laugh.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I bought his book. I bought his book this week.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that he had written one.
The poetry book?
No, the other one.
There's a poetry book too.
He wrote a novel. He
Yeah.
wrote a dystopian novel. All right. All collectivist systems require power in government, which the Constitution did not grant. Our founding fathers had no intention of allowing the government to become an instrument to steal the fruit of one man's labor and give it to another. And yet, who had not earned it. Our government was to be one of severely limited powers. Thomas Jefferson said, "In questions of power, then let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution." Jefferson knew that if the government were not enslaved, people soon would be. Jefferson knew a thing or two about enslaving people. Being the owner of numerous ones. Not that that's a bad thing, but it was Jefferson's view that government governs best, which governs least. Our forefathers established this country with the very least possible amount of government. Although they lived in an age before automobiles, electric lights, and television, they understood human nature and its relation to political systems far better than do most Americans today. Times change, technology changes, but the principles are eternal. Primarily, government was to provide for national defense and to establish a court system. But we have burst the chains that Jefferson spoke of, and for many years now, we have been moving leftward across the political spectrum towards collectivist total government. Every proposal by our political leaders, including some which are supposed to have the very opposite effect, such as Nixon's revenue sharing proposal, carries us further leftward to centralized government. This is not because socialism is inevitable. It is no more inevitable than Pharaohism. It is largely the result of clever planning and patient gradualism. Okay, that part very true. And I do want to say the transatlantic slave trade is the worst thing that ever happened to the United States. Maybe not for the reason you're thinking, but it is true.
We're not slave trade stands here at LMD.
Yeah, because there were consequences to that, which we're still dealing with. So, since all communists and their insider bosses are waging a constant struggle for socialism, let us define that term. Socialism is usually defined as government ownership and or control over the basic means of production and distribution of goods and services. When analyzed, this means government control over everything, including you. All controls are people controls. If the government controls these areas, it can eventually do just exactly as Marx set out to do. Destroy the right to private property, eliminate the family, and wipe out religion. I'm gonna be real with you. We got basically two of those done.
Yeah.
Like basically two. So, you know, I mean, it's working. Yeah, credit where it's due, I guess. We are being socialized in America, and everybody knows it. If we had a chance to sit down and have a cup of coffee with the man in the street that we have been interviewing, he might say, you know, the one thing I can never figure out is why all these very, very wealthy people like the Kennedys, oh man, still a Kennedy in office. Funny. The Fords, the Rockefellers, and others are for socialism. Why are the super rich for socialism? Don't they have the most to lose? I take a look at my bank account and compare it with Nelson Rockefeller's, and it seems funny that I'm against socialism and he's out promoting it. Or is it funny? In reality, there's a vast difference between what the promoters define as socialism and what it is in actual practice. The idea that socialism is a share the wealth program is strictly a confidence game to get the people to surrender their freedom to all-powerful collectivist government. While the insiders tell us we're building a paradise on Earth, we're actually constructing a jail for ourselves. Yeah.
Thanks, Alan.
What?
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks.
I hate it.
Thanks, Gary. Does it strike you as strange that some of the individuals pushing hardest for socialism have their own personal wealth protected in family trusts and tax-free foundations? I'm getting a little tired of the rhetorical questions, actually.
They do this like they do
I
this.
know.
They
It's
do
such
this
an
in
easy sell. It's such
they
an
do
easy sell.
they do this in their emails though. Like I have
I
like
know.
I have your chain like 300. You know who else? You know who's really bad about this? And he's like Paul. Oh God, the Jew. What is the Jew? Oh, the one Patrick Casey is always like the paleocon. Paul. He wrote the fascism book. He's written so many of these books. I'm getting so old. I can't even remember these names. Paul Gottfried. Paul Gottfried is really bad about this in emails. Yeah. He will just send like endless sort of rhetorical bullshit chain mails. Oh my God, so bad. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, great. Look at this chat exploding with Godfrey and got fired and got freed and got freed. There we go. Yes. Wonderful. Yeah, I'm getting a little tired of them in any case. Men like Rockefeller, Ford, and Kennedy are for every socialist program known to man, which will increase your taxes. Yet they pay little, if anything, in taxes themselves. An article published by the North American Newspaper Alliance in August of 1967 tells how the Rockefellers pay practically no income taxes despite their vast wealth. The article reveals that one of the Rockefellers paid the grand total of $685 in personal income tax during the recent year. We are still doing like income tax fucking math. So control the goddamn narratives. What the fuck? Like we're still doing this bullshit. Like they're paying more income tax than you. Yeah, no shit. They're paying less income. Less income tax. No shit. They're paying less income tax than me. They can afford to structure their vast incomes in a completely different way. The Kennedys have their Chicago Merchandise Mart, their mansions, yachts, planes, etc., all owned by their myriads of family foundations and trusts. Taxes are for peons. Yet hypocrites like Rockefeller, Ford, and Kennedy pose as great champions of the downtrodden. If they were really concerned about the poor, rather than using socialism as a means of achieving personal political power, they would divest themselves of their own fortunes. Yeah, well, except, we have people who do that. Like, we have people like Bill Gates, who's like paying down, who's closing the Bill Gates Foundation and like paying all of his principal into other shit. And like the whole die with nothing thing that these boomer billionaires are doing.
Yeah.
Like, so what?
You know what my thought was when I saw that? I was like, how can we get a couple of people to start a shell company and get some of that cheddar? We got to be able to bullshit it well enough.
How can you? It's literally how I mean, they're doing it because they are absolutely terrified of not, like, boomers are incapable, almost to a man, incapable of reaching the top level of the hierarchy of needs. They just can't fucking do it.
It's true.
It's just a fundamentally like maladjusted arrested development generation.
I went off on that today.
Here we go. Alex Berry. But why? Why get rid of all of this wealth? It's insane. Well, no, it's not insane. He's going to have some of his own personal wealth left. Like, he's never going to be fucking poor.
Yeah.
But he's giving away billions and billions of dollars to these fucking programs that will make the world worse. They will make the world worse in so many ways. He's going to spend it on the most insidious dysgenic shit, or possibly things that are directly destructive. And it's going to be fucking bad. And I'm sorry. I'm not sure where I was. I'm not sure where I was going.
I was on the boomer
Oh
question.
yeah. If they were really concerned about the poor rather than using socialism as a means of achieving personal political power. Yeah. Well, so Gary Allen has made a false distinction here. It does not fucking matter. Like they will spend money to do things. They will spend money. Like the end goal is not just wealth. Obviously, everyone wants enough to at least like pay for their own life and like with some level of comfort. But what ultimately drives people is rarely wealth. So yeah, like they do donate their stuff and they donate it to the worst shit.
Yeah.
So
I'm like literally thinking like, how can I come up with some absolutely disgusting 501c3 to AstroTurf and get a couple mil off Bill?
Yeah, I don't know, like come up with like end testicular cancer in Bangladesh by castrating every boy.
Yeah, or just
Like-
thinking that, or like like special fund for transgender AIDS infected creatives in like Calcutta.
I don't think he cares about the trans.
Yeah.
Now you get some money off Mackenzie Scott Bezos. Though.
Yeah, that's what I was like. She's another one that I was like. There's a Venn diagram, and I was thinking about gaming both of them.
Yeah. Like I need to figure out how to. You're literally just doing like. You're doing micro loans to perform sex changes on Thai lady boys.
That's a good one. That's a
micro.
good one.
Yep, microfinance. So hot now.
Gender affirming microfinance for
sex workers in Southeast Asia. There you go. And you're just making the world fucking worse. And like here's the thing: if you never perform a single one, and spend it all on administrative expenses, then you will have done the world a favor.
Right, that's the goal.
It's the easiest good deed you can do.
Yeah, I mean, we might do one or two in Calcutta just to book it, but like,
just like look, we kept them in these formaldehyde jars. We got brown dicks for days. Those aren't attached to nobody no more. See, we did it. We got receipts. Oh, where are they? Well, we didn't really close the wound up, so it probably bled out. A lot of rats out here. Probably could have gotten eaten, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, Alex Berry, would reducing the population of the Thai people necessarily be worse? I mean, I don't know.
It wouldn't necessarily be worse. I don't
think you'd have an effect on the population of Thai people.
Mission creep, though. We're actually just trying to funnel money headed for the worst places in the world back into our own uniquely evil projects, like saving the novella.
Is it evil to save the novella?
Depends on how you feel about the
Depends on how you feel about the novella.
Yeah.
I like the novella. I think it's a positive good. Depending on who writes the novella.
I thought about plugging some of our friends, but then I decided they might not want this kind of publicity.
Our friends? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We have just a little bit left. Anyone who wants to sneak a super chat would be highly appreciated.
Yeah, no super chats from you louts today.
Wow. Yeah, I don't really want a good cop, bad cop this, but I will if we have to. Be ruder, Sandbatch, so that I can be nicer, or so that I don't have to be nicer and I can just be reasonable.
Well, I gotta get my ramen.
X Guy Extra overnight novel. That's right, overnight novel. David Herod mentioned by Improvidence. It's a great novella. It's about a brown guy in neo-colonial America.
Oh, I forget he's a fellow novella stan. The novella, by the way, my friends, is my favorite prose literary form.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you're a a poetry stan, right?
I am dangerously close to starting to refer to myself as a poet. If that happens, you all can kill me.
You cannot refer to yourself as a poet.
If that happens, you all can kill me. If it ever happens.
I can do that anyway.
Yeah.
Through inaction, I could cause it to occur. Through inaction only. Anyway. All right. Well, I'll finish this and then we'll get to the next page. The Kennedys have their Chicago Merchandise Mart, their mansions, yachts, planes, all owned by their myriad family foundations. Taxes are for peons, yet hypocrites like Rockefeller, Ford, and Kennedy pose as great champions of the downtrodden. If they were really concerned about the poor, rather than using socialism as a means of achieving personal political power, they would divest themselves of their own fortunes. There is no law which prevents them from giving away their own fortunes to the poverty-stricken. Shouldn't all these men set an example and practice what they preach? If they advocate sharing the wealth, shouldn't they start with their own instead of that of the middle class, which pays almost all the taxes? Why don't Nelson Rockefeller and Henry Ford II give away all their wealth, retaining only enough to place themselves at the normal average? Can't you imagine Teddy Kennedy giving up his mansion, airplane, and yacht and moving to a $25,000 home with a $20,000 mortgage like the rest of us? Well, I can imagine him giving up his car pretty easily. Anyway.
I had to give that one crickets, but it's
you gave old Chappaquiddick the crickets. You son of a bitch. All right. We're going to call it. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us. Next week, there will not, the 19th, there will not be a Library of Mass Destruction, but there will be one on the 26th.
This is one of the surprises he's throwing at me this season. I didn't know I didn't, though. I should have anticipated that we're not, because it's like,
because I'm going to be, because the OGC is next weekend.
We're going to be in the same place. Yeah. We might do LMD without you.
That'd be wild. Just do LMD live. And Owen Zaleski, we mentioned at the beginning of the stream that Entropy is down. Like, it's just not working on YouTube right now. So I can't co-stream it, which means we can't get paid via Entropy. So it'll probably be fixed in the next week. So that does happen occasionally. In any case, we will see you next time. Goodbye for now.
You're discouraged from questioning and thinking critically. You must accept the word of the leaders. They make you feel guilty if you do question or argue. Your environment is often controlled, cutting you off from friends, family, school, previously held beliefs. They want you to become dependent, provide a poor diet, poor health care, little sleep, and long, exhausting hours of work to make you physically weak and lower your ability to think clearly. Subtly, your self-confidence gets undermined, and your self-image or sense of identity is changed. The leaders control channels of communication. They cut off or put down outside sources of information. Then they bombard you with what they want you to think. They use strong peer pressure, playing on your desire to be loved and accepted. The leaders may promise rewards if you obey them, and punishment if you don't. But they alternate harshness and leniency in order to confuse you. The leaders manipulate language, giving special meanings to words that only insiders understand. This is to make you feel like you're part of a special, important, or elite group, and that outsiders are inferior, dangerous, or doomed. You have to confess your shortcomings, mistakes, or misbehavior, sometimes even if these things never really happened. And meanwhile, your time and activities are tightly controlled. You don't have much privacy or energy or time to think because you're too busy doing monotonous, repetitive tasks. The leaders try to control you and even your sexuality, everything about you. They want to exploit you for their own enrichment, their own power or grandiosity. If they succeed, you will declare your loyalty unto its leaders, rejecting your old values and way of life. Without realizing it, you will have been changed into a person who is being controlled by a totalist cult.